Welcome to another episode of the HBC podcast. My name is Julio Torres, and today I'll be having a great interview with Jackie Parker, a former firefighter.
You're retired.
And the creator of the Texas Hawkbait. And we're going to dive into a bunch of conversation in regards of his early life, into the entrepreneurship, and also current events that's going on right now in the U.S. And Jackie, thank you for having me in your house, and I appreciate you opening the doors to basically a total stranger.
No, you're not a stranger, man. But yeah, no, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you drove all the way up here.
I'm trying to do my best.
You do your best. I'm impressed that you roll up and everything you have is real squared away. So, I would tell you I wish you luck, but man, it's funny, that luck thing. I used to tell my kids when they were little, we never really said luck in our house because luck is for the ill prepared. If you think about it, luck is for gambling, and I don't gamble. So luck is where preparation meets opportunity. And we build our luck, right? So I would say good luck, but looks like you're prepared. You're well prepared, and the fruits of your labor will come the more you keep digging in and keep doing these podcasts, man. It's impressive, brother. I appreciate what you're doing too. It's really interesting. We don't talk about that stuff a lot in the house because I guess when you do it for a living and you've done it for your entire life, since I started when I was 19, it's really not one of those things you go around and you just talk about it all the time, because most of the guys that do it that are real with it, like I was real busy, but man, you talk about things aren't easy and stuff in life. So when I graduated high school, I knew I wanted to be a fireman, but I didn't know how I was going to do it because I knew you had to take these tests. So I knew they were going to be tough, and I was like, man, in my head, so it was weird. It's like this weird thing that you're capable of doing stuff, but also you're kind of behind the eight ball because we didn't grow up with a lot of money. We weren't like given college educations when we graduated high school. It was, hey, go work in a factory like your dad did. But I didn't want to do the factory work because I felt like deep down inside I felt like and I don't want to say I'm above that because we got to have factory workers, right? But I felt like I wasn't wired for that. I didn't feel like that's where I was supposed to go with my life. So I wasn't going to just settle for status quo. Like, I'm going to work in a factory and just settle. That's what I'm going to do. I wanted to be a fireman, and I was like, I'm going to do whatever it takes. Or die trying, right? Literally, like, I'm going to do whatever it takes. So my mom didn't even I don't think she thought I was going to get in the fire academy. So she goes, if you get in the fire academy, I'll pay for it. So I was like bound and determined to get in the fire academy. Well, I got in, and she was like, well, okay, I guess I'll pay for it. So she paid for me to go to fire academy. So I was just out of high school going to fire academy, going to EMT school. My brother paid for EMT school because I didn't have any money. But I was determined this is what I want to do because, if you think about it, I'm single. I'm like, how am I going to ask some girl to marry me if I don't know what I'm going to be when I grow up? I mean, I'm 52. I'm not 100% positive what I'm still going to be when I grow up. But I don't believe, Julio, that anybody in the world should settle for one thing in life. I mean, risks are really, it's risky, right? And people are afraid to take risks. But if you can think about, like what you've done, you've been in the military, you've retired, you've come from Puerto Rico. You've lived a couple different lives. I mean, there's a couple different versions of Julio Torres, right? There really are.
Right.
There should be a couple different versions of everybody, and we should always try to do more to achieve what we want to achieve. We should still strive for that. No matter how old you are, it doesn't matter. Just keep going and keep digging. But believe. You have to believe. So for me, getting hired is another story, right? So I go to work at John Peter Smith Hospital as an EMT. I'm working back there. I'm a volunteer fireman in Alvarado when they're now paid. We were pretty busy, but my first job I got was in Gainesville. And man, I'll tell you, to this day, I remember getting hired on. I was 155 pounds, they had a weight limit. And I barely made their weight limit to get hired on because, I don't know, it's old school. Well, Gainesville's old school, but you got to have a weight limit. So I got hired on. I remember riding in the back of the fire truck, driving by these strip shopping centers and looking in the reflection. And just, this is it, man. This is it. And I remember the first night at the fire station, I was standing down in the bays looking out the glass bays, and the wind's blowing. It's February. It's pretty cold outside. I'm like, man, it's going to happen today. We're going to get us a fire. We're going to get something, And sure enough, we got a structure fire that night. And man, I just remember going on scene and, fighting fire and thinking, man, I've made it, right? But once again, I'm like, I'm not satisfied. This isn't. Gainesville's awesome, but I don't think this is where I'm supposed to be. I'm supposed to be in a bigger city, That's kind of the story of my life. So I went from Gainesville, I went to Flower Mound. As soon as I got hired on Flower, my wife and I met my wife in Gainesville. We're engaged. I mean, I'm cool with asking her father if I can marry her because I'm a career fireman, and when I get hired in Flower Mound, it's a good paying job. I loved Gainesville, miss Gainesville, still do to this day. I loved all the guys there. Go to Flower Mound, they tell me I got to go to paramedic school. And the paramedic school that I'm going to go to has a really high failure rate. It's UT Southwestern, and it was Monday through Friday, 7 to 3:30 every day. And I remember the assistant chief told me, he said, he was kind of a jerk, really, man. He goes, if you don't pass, we're going to fire you. And I was like, hey, no pressure, no pressure. But deep down inside, I know I'm going to pass. But also, I'm thinking, I'm not that smart. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't graduate in the top of my class. I'm like, I know I've had to work. I always tell people I'm Amish, I'm like Amish. I got to work twice as hard, 12 times harder than a normal person just to produce the same product. But I'm willing to do it, right? I mean, that's one thing we learned growing up was work ethic. I mean, grew up hauling hay and different things like that. You weren't afraid of hard work. And what most people, because working in construction with my cousins and my dad and stuff, working in construction, hauling hay, farming, stuff like that, that's legit hard work.
Oh, yeah.
So when you have a job and you go in and you're used to a good, firm background and foundation of hard work, most people are impressed when you come in and you start running to do a job, and you're always on, I'm about it. And so sadly, the expectations are different today, as far as people like that goes and kids and stuff today, because I don't feel like a lot of kids do, what we grew up doing, but it paid off. I ended up scoring number one in my paramedic class. Probably not a bragging point, but more of a terrified. What do I do? So I didn't know where the gauge was. Where's the scale of when is it too much studying?
Right.
So I just go in and I just kill it. I study every day, Monday through Friday. Saturday, Sunday, Super Bowl's on. My wife's like, you gonna watch Super Bowl? I'm like, I'll watch part of it, but I gotta do schoolwork. Even though I probably totally could have gotten by with not doing schoolwork, I'm like, I gotta do schoolwork because I have expectations. What's funny is you raise the bar yourself. But when you raise the bar, depending on what kind of person you are, once you raise your bar so high to a certain, you can never go back.
Right.
Because now you've set these expectations for yourself, and you've also set these expectations for people, what they can expect from you, what kind of quality of work they can expect from you. So it's really a lot. It's unfortunately, not that, guys like that care like me, but it's a lot of pressure. It ends up being a lot of pressure, but it didn't matter because it's like, hey, I can do more. I can do better. If I just do harder work, I can do better. So I wanted to go to Arlington. So I got hired in Arlington Fire Department. Well, also at the same time I'm going to Arlington, I feel like I'm a good paramedic. I teach paramedic stuff. I'm an FTO in the ambulance in Flower Mound. I was like, I think I want to be a flight paramedic and a fireman at the same time, which is crazy, right? But also at the same time, I want my wife to stay home. I want her to stay home. My son was born. So I was like, I don't really want, because that's the way I was raised. You know, my mom stayed home with us, and I wanted my kids to have a similar life to where they have stability. You know, not like going to daycare and stuff. It's like you know, that's me. You know, and now some people have to do that, and I get it, and I respect that too. I know what you got to do, but at the end of the day, you know, that's not what I wanted to do. So I wanted to go work basically a second full-time job, and I ended up getting hired on at CareFlight's flight paramedic. Well, now the bar is way up here, you know?
Right.
I mean, back then it was not easy to get hired on there because we made what they call, there's inter-facility transfers on the helicopter and there's scene calls. Well, most guys don't care about the inter-facilities. This guy, you know, it's going from hospital to hospital. I didn't really care too much about that because I was like, you know, I wanted to be the tip of the spear guy, right? Going on the scenes, bloody call, car wreck, whatever, pick up the patient, fly out like a combat zone, you know, landing in crazy places. That's what I was really about. I was like, if it was a risky job, I wanted to do it. You know, if they was like send a guy to the roof or do whatever, I was like, pick me, I'll do it. You know, maybe I had a death wish. I didn't, but my wife thought I did. But that was, so that was where the career really started cranking out, was when I got to Arlington, because I knew I was settled. I'm going to settle in here. I'm going to settle in here. And really in a city like Arlington, the sky's the limit. You can do as much as you want to do. You can be, you know, work 8 to 5 Monday through Friday as an officer. You can work hazmat. You can work, you know, swift water dive, high angle rescue, all these different spots. We have specialty stations like that. So in my mind, I was like, I want to do them all because they all sound interesting, right?
Right.
So I promoted up the ranks, and when I made lieutenant, they created a new spot called the medical operations lieutenant, which was an 8 to 5 job. And I remember I was in hazmat school, and one of the chiefs texted me and said, "Hey, med ops lieutenant," and I said, "No thanks." Text him back, "No thanks," because I don't want to work 8 to 5 Monday to Friday.
Why is that? Why you didn't want to work 8 to 5?
Well, first of all, 8 to 5 Monday through Friday means you're off on the weekends only. You know, and when you're a fireman, you work 24 on and 48 off. Mm-hmm. So you may work Christmas and things like that, but your benefit is you're 10 days a month, right? They're 10 full days. I mean, it's 24 hours at a time, but man, I don't know. I didn't want to do it. I mean, and still to this day, I didn't want to do it. It was good for me. I mean, it was better for me to do it, and I learned a lot. I did get the job. I had to leave CareFlight. I had to stop flying, so that's sort of sucked, but not really, because I was pretty much 8 years flying. When I quit flying, I was teaching, doing a lot of stuff. I mean, the flight part of what I did, the flying part was completely a full-time job. I mean, I was on committees. I was a FTO there, training nurses and stuff, and part of the CQI, part of the hiring committee, part of the helicopter committee. I mean, my life, I don't even know how I lived. Like, I don't know how I did anything, right? But I seemed to have more energy, I guess, back then. I guess I had a lot of energy. I'm lucky my wife's still here because I wasn't home very much. And I didn't realize how much I wasn't home really until I was, right? But that'll catch up with you, you know? Those things catch up with you. So the flying, and when I quit flying, I really started focusing full time on being a good fireman. You know, not that I wasn't already. I just was busy studying and reading constantly. I became a captain. I ended up going to the dive station and becoming a dive captain. So that was fun. Except, you know, our lakes are not cool, right? Our lakes are dark. So finding bodies in cars where you can't see this far in front of your face, it's pretty creepy.
It is. I want to dwell on that a little bit on the diving. You went to school for that?
I did.
Okay,
yeah.
How long was the school?
I would probably say it was about, for every certification for the dive stuff, it was about 6 months.
So it's a lengthy.
It was a lot, yeah.
It was.
It wasn't just recreational diving. Yeah, that was 2009 to 2011. That's when I was a dive captain. I was only 2 years. I made chief. So I made battalion chief, and I got promoted to battalion chief, was where it was like the pinnacle of my career, right? That's the only thing I want to do, because you don't have to work 8 to 5, where you do if you get an 8 to 5 gig. The harder you work, it seems like the more 8 to 5 jobs you get, right? Because they want you downtown, and I get it, and I understood, and it helped. But there's a cost to that, like you got to work around a bunch of admin people all the time. There's constantly expectations. You got to talk to a lot of VIP type people. You're engaged with a lot of things. I mean, I was helped run command at the Super Bowl when we had it here. A lot of football games, a lot of concerts, a lot of stuff at the stadium. Worked at the stadium a ton. The stadium was okay. Some guys really liked it. I didn't really like it. But what a lot of people don't get is like, when you mow your yard, your kids or whoever may see that the yard's mowed. But what's the backside of mowing your yard? You got to have a lawnmower. The blades got to be sharp. I mean, you got to do maintenance on your maintenance equipment, right? Mm-hmm. If you have a pickaxe, you got to sharpen the pickaxe. I mean, so there's a lot of layers to logistics in everything we do. It's like you doing a podcast. You have to show up at my house, GPS over here, meet me, and then come in here and set up stuff. There's a lot more to things that I think that a lot of people miss the details and a lack of appreciation. So at the stadium, we would show up really early because we have to set up a bunch of hazmat equipment. We got to get dogs to sweep the stadiums for an NFL game or NCAA game or whatever, any concert, anything at all. It's the safest place in America. I mean, if people ever wonder how safe the stadium is, it is the safest place in America, period.
So you were involved basically on the security aspect of on the every event on the Coliseum, or
from a public safety, the public safety component that has to do with any fires, injuries, hazmat calls, radiation, anything like that. That was hard. That was our job.
Crazy.
And that would be filter up over to me.
Right.
So if we had, believe it or not, like at the stadium, we had equipment that would tell you if somebody like just had some sort of radiation treatment at the hospital. They would set our beepers off, they would set our detectors off just walking past us, right? We would just go up to them and say, hey, did you have any radiation done recently? Like, yeah, why? We're like, we're going to give you this bracelet. Okay. All right, so we're going to give you a bracelet so we know. So if you go off again, you just got to show them your bracelet. So the stadiums are crazy safe, and there's a lot of we have bomb dogs, that sweep vehicles. So everything that goes under the stadium is swept. Everything that goes, anything that comes near that stadium there's detectors all around that place. There's cameras everywhere. We know everything that's going on. You can't tweet anything weird out of that stadium without us knowing about it. I mean, there is a component to that people don't understand. I was there with the FBI and there was a girl that tweeted something like, we're going to blow this place up or whatever. I don't know what she meant, but then the FBI found her. And they're like, what do you mean? And she was like, oh, no, not like that. So they take stuff very serious. So, they are watching. They're watching. But they're, like I said, the stadiums are very safe. So
you work with a lot of components and different agencies. Basically, you have to coordinate with all the agencies. And
a lot of times you work in a JOC. You know what a JOC is, right? Joint Operations Center.
Wait, okay.
So if it's real big, like a Super Bowl or something, there'll be a JOC set up like in Grapevine.
Okay.
And there'll be people from all over, like NCAA or NFL, whoever their people are with, liaisons, different that watch different stuff that's going on in the area, because there's, like at a Super Bowl, there's stuff going on in Dallas, there's stuff going on in Arlington, there's stuff going on in Fort Worth. So they all are coordinated. They're constantly watching social media traffic to make sure that somebody's not talking about doing something silly, know? And they do. People talk about stuff, and there's a lot of chatter, and they catch it. And we send out a lot of stuff, that, there's a lot of, like, you'll be in a chain of emails of classified information, it just says, this is what we're watching, be aware. So it's good for us to have that awareness, right, that there's some things possibly going on here. But anytime we had stuff, Arlington's a pretty safe city. I can't really speak for Dallas and Fort Worth, but I know that they're pretty similar as far as the way they work. But as far as like me, intimate knowledge is Arlington is pretty safe, pretty squared away. I mean, the fire service is really squared away.
I mean, I cannot even imagine if you have a VIP coming into the stadium, like president or any.
All the time.
I mean, I cannot imagine the level of like the high alert and the pressures that you have. Because imagine you have the president in the stadium.
Well,
watching
George
the
Bush
game.
came a lot. You know, like there was the governor.
Right.
We would have a dignitary protection.
Okay.
So they would have a dig team. So if somebody did come in that was a VIP like that, I mean, like somebody like Beyonce or something, it's not the same. You got to bring your own people. But like if you're a .gov person,
Right.
you know, then we would put out a dig team, and they basically would have like a quick action team, you know,
A QRF.
for the QRF. Yeah,
Right.
they would, and we would be assigned to that. We would have hazmat people with it, paramedics with it. With the QRF, they would be ready to put on masks, you know, give medications, do whatever, depending on what it was. If there's a dirty bomb or something goes off, I mean, like I said, there's so many layers that when people would watch a football game, that they don't understand the logistics that go into that game even coming on.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
just the people on the field have to be protected, right?
Everybody. Yeah. Yeah.
What
it's
happens
crazy.
if an NFL player has a cardiac arrest? You have to have protocols in place that say exactly what you're going to do, so you don't look crazy going out there and not knowing what you're going to do. Everything is pretty much scripted out, like if in every scenario. So to be prepared for every scenario, you got to have the right person in place. Everything. So logistics is nuts.
I was just imagine. I mean, just thinking about it, being in the military, it's the same thing that you were saying. Once you have a plan of action, you have to have a preparedness for that plan of action.
Oh yeah.
Like you say, like, okay, we have a dirty bomb or something like that. Okay, what equipment do we have? Is that equipment serviceable? When was the last inspection for that equipment? Make sure it works when you need it. Do you pack that equipment? Do you have a checklist? I mean, it's a lot of stuff that go into it. It's layers on their layers on their layers, and that's a lot of people involved. I cannot even imagine for an event like that I didn't know it took place. You know, all that preparation beforehand, and it is insane. I mean, Jackie, you have my mind blown just thinking about it. I'm like, Jesus, I cannot even imagine like 10 different agencies with a bunch of protocols and bunch of SOPs and working together to make an event that lasts probably 4 hours
Yeah.
happens successfully
12.
and without
12 to
incident
16 hours. We're there 12 to 16 hours.
for a 3 hour, 4 hour event.
Yeah, for just a small event, for
Right.
the Big 12 championship or the Cotton Bowl. You know, there'll be so many moving parts to that a lot of people don't realize, which is fine. I mean, that's not what they get paid to do, but there's a ton of different little moving parts that got to go into place, and there's an event action plan that gets produced. So basically, it's like when they do roll call, everybody shows up. Some people show up at different times, you know, throughout the day because, you know, you got medics all in the. So like, what happens if a person in the stands in the stadium has a heart attack and dies, like cardiac arrest, right there in seat C141, right? Mm-hmm. So we have a little team of 2 with little carts that roll in and do whatever. Or what happens if there's a car fire in the parking lot? You know, in the middle of traffic coming in and out. We got small little fire rigs that are like golf carts outside that respond to those things. And so it's basically like a city. Inside, it is not basically like a city. It is a city inside of a city. And an event like that brings in, you know, 100,000+ people. So, and they're all crammed into one spot.
Wow. Yeah.
You know, depending on the weather and stuff like that, depending on the age group. Like, it was, who's the guy that used to be in the Beatles? Paul?
Yep. Paul, yeah. If he had Paul, and then you have a Ringo. And
Okay, so Paul, what's his last name? McCarthy?
Paul McCarthy. Yep.
Paul McCarthy came to concert. And this was pretty new. This was like in probably like 2009. Well, think about who's coming to a Paul McCarthy concert, right? Bunch of old people.
Right. Yeah.
Man, it was hot that day. It was like July or August. It was so hot that day. And I was working, like, I don't remember, like I was in charge, I think, maybe med ops or something, medical side. I don't remember what I was. But I just remember they hadn't opened the stadium and all these people were standing out in front of the stadium on the west side. The west side of the stadium, all these old people start falling out. And we're like, hey, man, you guys got to open these doors because these people are going to die. They're old.
Yeah, they're not built for that.
They're not built for that. Heck, man, a lot of Texas is crazy. I don't care if you are built for it. You stand out there too long, it's a heat sink. You know, the concrete starts getting hot, pouring heat off of it. You're getting heat, you know, you're a little
You get squished in
heat
the middle.
sandwich. Yeah, it's not good.
People getting heat stroke.
Yeah, they were falling out, man. It was nuts. We were like, oh, this is not going to go well. This is not going well.
Oh, yeah. I cannot even imagine just being there and just seeing people, like, I told my friends, like, man, if you're sweating, even it's hot, it's good. Once you stop sweating, that's when you start worrying about.
Yeah.
That's when you start worrying. I mean, you said people, start getting pale, stop sweating.
Yeah.
It's time to call it quits. I mean, it's time to, like, hey, you need to go in the shade, get water or something.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. Rehydration is a crazy thing. Like in the fire service, I had a guy, I was a lieutenant at Station 6, which is the hazmat station, and we had a guy we had a hazmat call that day earlier in the day. Well, in a hazmat call, we were level A suits, the big old suits with the complete encapsulated body. With an air pack on, they are humid. They're extremely humid. You sweat like profusely in those things. So it was we had to go into UTA, do something. Well, that evening at like 10 o'clock at night, we had a house fire. Well, that same guy who hasn't really recovered from that, he's fallen out at a house fire. It's like we go to a house fire. It's hot, man. It's like August. This is where it's 96 degrees at
and the humidity
11 o'clock, and the humidity is just
off
insane.
the roof.
So, but fortunately we had to go through a physical process every year. It was decent, I mean, like I always told my guys when I was a battalion chief that I will literally discipline you so bad if you can't pass this because it's mandatory. PT's mandatory. Every shift.
How often you do? Oh, every shift?
Every shift. It's mandatory. 8 to 10 every day, mandatory. Now, the problem with that would be is our chiefs would say it's mandatory, but then they would schedule classes and stuff like that. But then I would tell my guys, you can PT when you get back. But then they started trying to change it because we had one chief and he was literally a tyrant. And he just didn't, I don't think he liked firemen very much, but he retired since, and the fire department's gone way up since he's left. But when he was there, they wouldn't allow the PT, things like that. So it makes it tough for a chief to say, hey, I'm going to hold you accountable for not being physically fit or in shape when they just don't give them time to go PT, They were just working them so thin that they weren't able to do anything.
Yeah, you have to give me that break.
Oh, of course, man. Firemen need to be fit. I mean, like it or not, you need to be fit. I mean, that job is taxing. Mentally, it's taxing. I remember working on the helicopter, and I would be in there with like a little kid. And kids are different, right? Because all their anatomy and their airway is completely different. Their drugs are different because everything's weight-based. So we don't have a scale in the helicopter. So we use like a Broslow tape or something we can measure. But then that if a kid's, this year, this age, that he should be close to this because there's a formula, 16 plus age divided by 4. That's how we can determine the ET tube size. And then you can take the tube size and multiply that times 3. That's how deep it goes. But most guys don't know stuff like that. So you take a Broslow tape, which measures it out, and this kid's going to be either yellow, purple, green, white, blue. So that you just follow that. You go look at that. And to give this kid this much of atropine or this much of epi or whatever it is, you give them these drugs. But when you're in the helicopter, I would be in there. We're literally the tip of the spear, right? I mean, we don't get like a bogus toothache call. Especially back then. We got calls where they were sick, nearly dead. And when you would get a kid in there, not only is it a critical patient, it's a critical patient that you have to follow the guidelines of the age because you don't want to over medicate a 20-kilogram kid. You don't want to over medicate that kid by screwing up and doing your dose. So everything's got to be, man, I'll be in the helicopter. It'll be winter. And I'll be doing this math in my head and doing this stuff and dealing with this kid that's real traumatically injured. And I'm like sweating bullets, It's like nuts, but I like mentally, though, that's taxing. I don't have any idea. I just would sweat, though, man. If I think too hard, I start sweating. I'm not obviously thinking very hard right now because I'm not sweating, but you're making it easy on me, brother. You're making it easy on me.
It is. It's just the stress, and people when you have that level of stress constantly, it takes a toll on you mentally. Like you there day and night having that. Like I don't know how many times you get a call. Like when you were in a flight medic, I don't know how many times you get a call. But if you get two calls a day, whatever, it is taxing. Because it's a different dynamic every time. It's just different, especially in dealing with kids. I cannot even fathom.
It is different. A lot of firemen, you'll hear a lot of different versions of this. Like they'll say they'll come back and they'll cut up about certain things, but that's very rare, really, that they'll joke around about somebody dying. Like that doesn't really. People say, "Well, we just kid about how we deal with it." That's not really true. I've never really met, and I've been. I mean, death is a terrible, sad thing for anybody. No matter what position you're in, if you're a flight paramedic, if you're a fireman or whatever, we never really joked around about stuff like that. And also, you got to think about it like this, too. It's a slippery slope because we would have a car wreck, and we had a car crash one day. It was on Green Oaks, and this little kid died in the car wreck. And it was just ridiculous. Family didn't have this kid in a car seat or even in a seatbelt, right? This happens all the time. And I always wanted to write a congressman and say, hey, look, if a kid's not in a car seat and they're old enough to be in a car seat and they get killed in a car crash or they even get injured in a car crash, it needs to be a felony assault. Because we need to get people to put kids in the car seats. Take it serious. But this kid died. And, well, one of the other guys at the other station was like, hey, man, they come, hey, man, you need to talk to so-and-so. He's really been bothered by that call. You see, man, that I get it. But here's another thing. Like, we need to deal with everything, and we need to try to have a way to decompress and to deal with stuff. But when you're new in the fire service, you need to realize that you do need to realize this is the job you chose. I mean, you chose this career path where you're going to see pretty much nothing but death and destruction every shift. Now, you have to be empathetic, or people will put a gun in their mouth, right? They'll eat a bullet. They will, because that stuff takes a toll on you. Trauma at the end of the day is if you get hit with a ball peen hammer or a sledgehammer, you're still receiving a blow, and that trauma will take its toll on you. So when a fireman, like for me, the only thing I was used to in my entire life since I was 19 years old was chaos. Like, if it's critical and it's on fire, I think, well, this is what I'm wired for, right? Like, that's not a healthy mentality to have. So when I retired, I struggled a little bit with that, right? Like, I was struggling with that because I'm like, trying to run my business, trying to do stuff like that, and it takes a toll on you. So I had a buddy of mine, we sat down and had a long talk about it, and I think a lot of people need to recognize that early. It's like you're stuck in a river in the daytime, and you're floating down these really fast-moving water, and your buddy walks by you and says, hey, man, Julio, are you good? And you know that you're kind of like, I don't know how I'm really going to get out of here. I just know I am. You go, no, man, I'm good. I'm good. I like the water. I'm having fun down here. But you're really deep down inside, you're not having fun in there, and you don't want to be in there much longer. Well, now these other guys keep coming by, and the same thing happens, and now the sun's gone down. Now it's gotten cold. The water's moving faster. One last guy comes by. Hey, man, are you good, dude? That's water's nuts. You look like you're suffering. Are you okay? For real? These guys like me and you, they're wired like that. They say, oh, yeah, man, I love the rapids. I'm totally fine. I guess people are starting to notice that I'm in a bad way. You think to yourself, man, other people are noticing that I'm in a bad way. So that guy's gone, man. He was going to throw you a rope, right? He was going to throw you a rope. But the guy that's the most in stress, in trouble, in dire need of the rope, he rejects the rope. Who does that? So many people do. So many people do because they don't, first of all, they don't really want to admit out loud that they're in trouble. And then they don't want to accept the help because it makes them look weak. And they know they can get out eventually. Look, there's only two ways out. You know, either you die or you smash into a rock. There's it. You're taking damage. Now you're taking damage because there's no more help coming. So you'll smash into a rock. And when you smash into that rock, now you got injuries for real. Brother, this happens all across this country right now. And I'm not talking about just firemen. I'm talking about people in general. They get themselves financially in a bad way. They get themselves trying to please other people. You know, we have to learn to be gardeners in life and cultivate the soil and slow things down. You know, for a fruit to grow, the seed has to die. If you want to produce good fruit, you have to cultivate the ground. You have to nurture that spot. You have to plant that seed. You can't water your weeds, right? You can't go in there and start watering your weeds. You need to go get rid of the weeds, make sure there's no bugs messing with it, because I'll believe it or not, your life depends on that garden, right? Your life truly depends on what you grow in life. So I've been working with some guys, and believe it or not, man, there's a ton of them out there, me included. I got a DWI in 2022. I was running a company, and man, I was in that bad way. Julio. I was in that bad way. People were trying to throw me a rope all the time, and I don't know. I thought I was good, but I wasn't. I don't drink anymore, but I'm telling you this because so many people don't understand how many people are also suffering too, right? That there's other people that are suffering too. They're struggling in life too. They're like, what do I do? It's just, it's a tough one, but there is a process to do. Admit it.
Ego. I was talking.
Oh yeah, man.
I was talking about that with my friends in I think my last podcast that I did a live in Spanish, and I was talking about that. Talking about the factor of the ego prevents you to get help, like you were saying. Like people throw you a rope and be like, "Hey, Jackie, are you okay?" And you like the ego inside of you saying, "You're good," but deep inside you know you're in a bad situation, and you keep going. And it happened even to me when I was like 2014. I was in a bad spot. Even I was in the military, I was in a bad spot, and I kind of find refuge in the drinking. And before I knew it, I was an alcoholic.
Yeah, same.
And I was like drinking every day, just trying to drown my.
It's escape, man.
Yeah, trying to like find escape, but at the same time I was drowning.
Yeah.
In my own selfishness, ego, and I was like, man, I just need to get out of it. But I would drink one more, and I would drink one more fifth, and one.
Yeah.
And I just keep drinking every day, every single day for months on end. And one day I just realized, like, you know what? I need to get out of this because it would not lead to any good anyway. I know the outcome, it would be bad.
Death.
Or I'll be like, man, I would get on my car one day and I would kill somebody. I would hurt somebody. I would probably hurt myself. And I was talking to a friend on my last podcast that he found the same issue. He relied on alcohol too. And he told me like, hey, Julio, it was the ego. The ego was eating me from the inside out.
You know what? We'll go back to what I was saying earlier when I started raising the bar.
Mm-hmm.
You can't go back. In your mind, you can't go back. You absolutely can. But when you raise the bar so high in your life, now you're you're worried about like imposter syndrome, like, man, these guys are going to think I'm not the real deal, you know, or something like that, when you really are the real deal. But every car breaks down. Every car has to have maintenance done on it. Every piece of anything has to have maintenance done on it. So it was really good for me, man. It was a wake-up call. I realized that you know, I wasn't like wanting to, you know, kill myself or anything like that. I just didn't, you just don't, the thing is, it's like the boiling frog syndrome. You don't realize how much you're suffering, and you're drinking and you're like, I'll just drink because I think better when I'm drinking. Right, bro?
I feel better.
I feel better. I'm more confident. I used to have this excuse where it's like, I'll just go home. If I got to button up some stuff at Texas Hog Bait or something, I would just go home. I go home, I'll make a few drinks, and I'll get on the computer, and I'll really work this stuff. Man, I didn't get nothing accomplished. You know, I'll be like, I'll get it tomorrow. And then tomorrow you got a hangover, and you feel like total dog crap, and then, you know, it's like, but the point is, we can't, first of all, we want to avoid getting into that situation, right? So we go back to this, right? So what we have to do in life every day, it's kind of crazy. And this is when I've been talking to a buddy of mine, Rodney Smith. He was a battalion chief in Arlington with me, and he was the chief of Cedar Hill. He's a superhuman being, right? He's a good guy for you to do a podcast with. Rodney's a superhuman being. He runs the 9/11 stair climb in Dallas, the largest stair climb in the nation.
Wow.
Rodney's an interesting cat. He's got great stories. I'll link you guys up, but he's a good podcast for you to do. Real good dude. Real good human, man. But he knows pain too, right? He's lost firemen. You know, we lost Don Hogg. We lost him on duty, right? That was one of Rodney's guys. So, but what we have to do is, Rodney and I have been talking about this, is we need to have, like in a helicopter, when I flew on a helicopter, a caution light is the yellow light. That's just like, hey man, you need to do something. You know, this isn't good. But when the red warning light starts going off, it's really bad. But in our life, we have those same lights, and we know when they're flashing. But what we have to do is when the yellow light starts flashing, when we have anything that's like, when you think about this, like, have you ever found yourself like, you've been doing some stuff, you talk to some people, you do some things, and all of a sudden you wake up the next day and you're like in a pissy mood. You're like, man, I don't know what it is, man, but I'm in a mood today. So what you do is, what I learned to do was I started tracing back my steps. Like, hey, let's go back and see what triggered me to feel like that. Where did I go off the rails? And what was it that caused me to do that? And let me see if I can't eliminate that or create space. So that's when I started getting this concept of boundaries. So there's a concept of boundaries and there's a concept of walls. So the boundaries concept is in a basketball game. If you're playing basketball and you go out of bounds, everybody understands that that's normal, and it's not, you're out of bounds, we stop. Other team gets the ball. Everybody accepts that. We're acceptable of that. But like if you go back to Berlin, you know, they put the wall up, what was it, in the 50s or something like that? The Berlin Wall?
Yeah.
It took it down in the 80s.
It came down in like 89,
something like that. Yeah, it came down. But they built a wall that separated families. Well, walls separate families. Well, what we don't realize is in our own life, we create walls. We create these walls. And you don't realize you've created a wall from peace. See, when you start drinking, you've separated yourself from true peace. You've chosen to build a wall and to isolate yourself. So like my master bedroom is down the hall. But if we were sitting in there's a bedroom right behind us. So if you were staying the night here, you're this close to a bedroom, right? There's just a wall right there. You're that close to rest. But if we go through the doorways, we get to the rest. So we have to learn that when we start building a wall, which it could be, so your wall could be bitterness, hatred, politics, right? Leads to these things. People getting really involved with politics, or family members. My wife wasn't giving me the right amount of attention. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like you put up a wall. You put up this wall, and that wall blocks you from peace. So you go and you say, you know what? I'm just going to go back here in my office and drink booze. Right? So But when we go back and we identify where the problem was, which is what we should do, so we make our steps back, we identify what we should do, we set up boundaries now. So if it's a particular person, like a friend of yours that you're like, hey man, I need to create a little bit of space. Like, I can talk to you, man, but I can't cross this line to do it. Right? Because if you cross that line, if you cross that boundary to communicate with this particular person, you're subjecting yourself to the world, to the worldly problems, to worldly things. So boundaries are good. You can explain it to them. There's nothing wrong with explaining like, hey man, look, dude, I don't want to be talking bad about people all the time. I don't talk nasty about anybody. I don't have any reason to. Man, my life is very peaceful now, but I found boundaries and walls, because I'll literally, if I have a wall, name the wall until it comes down, right? I mean, you can't obviously take a wall down in one day. You can certainly try, but if you name that wall, now you've made it a target. And that wall could be anything, Julio. You could be, what is it keeping you from peace? What is it that's keeping you from going and doing so? Is it fear? You know, what is it that's keeping people from tackling things in their life? Oh, I don't like being a public speaker, right? Maybe I'm not afraid and you're not afraid. But maybe there's a lot of people that don't want to do a podcast with you because they're afraid they may sound goofy on YouTube or you know, on a podcast, or they just don't know if they would look normal or whatever. You know, I would tell that person, you're more interesting than you think. You're a lot more interesting than you think, and that we do want to hear from you. I personally want to hear from. I don't want to hear from a celebrity person that people put on a pedestal, when I know for a fact that there's really good people in this country right now that have really interesting stories that would bless people if they could be heard. They would be a blessing to so many people if they could just be heard. And we need to hear from these people. We really, truly, sincerely need to hear. You know, we can't get into this, yeah, I'm going to be on your podcast if I give you $1,000 or whatever, because I want to talk about, man, that right there, my friend, is literally imposter syndrome. You will be caught. The truth is easy to remember.
Sooner or later, and you're going to put yourself in a bad, turbulent river, and it's going to be dark, and you're not going to know how to get out of it because you don't even know who you are. So being authentic, being real to yourself, you're more interesting than you think. You try to measure up to somebody else that has this most interesting lifestyle, but in reality, that person looks at you and thinks, man, I would love to be in that guy's shoes sometimes because, man, his life is so peaceful. Isn't that a great place to be? It is amazing. It is just, man, are you talking to me? Because I was talking to my wife just about that. I was on my way here. I called my wife and say, hey, baby, I just want to interview the real people. Not the 1% that sit in the corporate office or make millions, or celebrities that they already conducted hundreds of interviews and people know their story like a script. They already know that. Yeah. I just want to meet people, blue collar, the people that work every day to make their life better and make America what it is, you know, a great country. And she's like, just interview the people. Just go out there and meet them in their environment and meet them and get to know them and get the best out of it. Because a lot of people know, like celebrities, they already know. They see me every day, social media. They see me every day on the radio. They just listen to them like on the cars. And people need to know the real people.
Yeah, they do. In those celebrities, they have problems. We all have. I mean, like if you were going to do a percentage of people that have issues that they have to face, it's a 100%.
Guaranteed.
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, my life isn't always easy. I accept challenges. I mean, I'm in college full time, and at 52, going back to school, I had to get a foundation to write again, right? Like to be academic, scholarly papers. And I write long papers. Well, one of the things I decided to do when I went back to school was I said, hey, I told my wife, I said, what if I give this as much credit and as much energy and time that I gave every promotional process where that bar was real high? What if I said I'm raising this bar academically in college Because, I didn't get a degree. I had college hours. I started going to school when I sold Texas Hog Bait last year. I've already had my game plan. After I got, a DWI, I got in trouble with drinking. I was like, okay, that doesn't work well. That didn't work out so great. And then it's embarrassing too, right? But one of the things, Julio, is I tell everybody. That's why I tell you on this podcast is because, man, maybe there's one person that's listening that says, dude, I know what that guy's talking about. I'm here right now. And maybe they call you and they say, hey, man, I want to get a hold of that dude, or I want to talk to you, or I got a story that I want to share. Because really, that's the real America, brother. That's the real America, is the guy that ain't afraid to say, look, man, I freaking fell on my face, dude, more than once. And I got marks to show you. And 100%, dude, it was a weird deal, but I mean, it was truly in my life a blessing. It was a blessing because it really, really, it knocked the wind out of your sails. But when you say, oh, man, it ruined my life. What ruined your life? It's a setback, man. It didn't ruin my life. It's a setback. It was a minor setback. I go back to court in June and I get it dropped. So because it wasn't that big of a deal, it wasn't like I blew like crazy or anything. It was minimal, but I do what I'm supposed to do. I enjoyed doing community service. Matter of fact, I did it all. I still go and help them, like every once in a while, because if you, and that's another thing that people need to do is, every once in a while, be a good neighbor. Do something for somebody, even when you say, I don't have time. The reason why I say do something for somebody else is so you can kind of put yourself in check and say, this is not all about me. It's not all about me. I go and do things for people sometimes, man, when I don't want to. I don't want to. Sometimes I'm like, man, I'm so busy. I do it anyway because I'm like, it's not all about me. I have a set of skills. I can help some people, because I can build and stuff. I helped a 70, 80-year-old couple not that long ago. Didn't ask for any accolades. It doesn't matter. But, man, just doing the job I did for them, man, they were so grateful. They were so grateful. And, man, it really helped them. And it was nothing. It was like, hours. But it was nothing. But they couldn't do it. And it was like, and then it just gives you some fulfillment in life. And that is better than being hopeless, right?
Right. Sometimes just helping somebody else, even just listening to somebody else's problems, it helps them.
And you know what? You may be the beneficiary of that conversation. You know what I mean? Listening to somebody else's problems. Here's the thing too. You can't always have problems. We don't, I don't believe in being somebody's guru. Like, I don't want to be anybody's guru. But as men in this country, what we have to learn to do is, instead of leaning on each other, we should lean into one another, right? We lean into, so we prop each other up. So you can't call me and say, hey, Jack, I got a problem, man. It's like, I say, hey, man, fire away, brother, because I want to bounce some stuff off you as well. Like, I know this is what I did when I was in that situation. And then you say, yeah, man, I tried this. And I go, yeah, man, I laugh. That doesn't work, bro. But we lean into one another, right? We lean into one another. We check on our brothers, man, because when you look at the whites of somebody's eyes, honestly, Julio, you don't know what battle's going on back there, man. You don't know what battle they're facing. You really don't know what battle they're facing. So the only thing you can do is to lend them the hand and say, look, I'm here for you, man. I'm here for you for real. How I make people feel better is to be vulnerable and to tell them the truth about me. It's to tell them the truth that, hey, man, I went through some stuff too. I've been through some stuff too. And I've done a lot of cool stuff. I got a great resume, right? But I'm not ashamed to say, yeah, man, I fell on my face, dude. I made some mistakes, and it was it was supposed to be in the highlight of my life, but
right.
There's no excuses for what I did. But at the end of the day, there were a lot of people that were willing to help, but also you can't get out of your ego's way. That ego gets big.
Ego. It's just like a monster. I was talking to my friend. He's just like, man, ego is like a monster that every time you reject help, it's like you feeding him more and more. It gets big, and sometimes it just overwhelms people, and it overwhelmed me, my ego, and a lot of people probably feel the same way. And I want to ask you a real question. That moment that you got the DWI, that was the instrument that turned like to break the wall for you and open yourself to get help. That was the moment, the catalyst in your life.
Unfortunately, yes. Like I had just been talking to my wife about it, just like, man, not even a month before. And originally, when I went to jail, I wasn't really drunk or anything like that. But when I went to jail, I was like, well, don't tell anybody. I was like, don't say anything. And man, she was like,
quiet.
yeah, keep it quiet. We don't know any. So that when she hung up the phone, I know she was like going, oh man, he's not going to learn his lesson. But I totally was. Like, so I was still like, in my mind, I was like just trying to cover this up. Like, I don't want anybody to know, I got to, But that night I went to bed in the jail because they make you stay in there for 24 hours. I'm glad they did. So I was like, bro, when I left, I was only there for a day, right? And when I left jail, man, these dudes were like high-fiving me. Like, it was like I got out of prison for 15 years or something. It wasn't even like that, but I was friends with everybody. Because what I did was I took that opportunity to be there to say, hey, look, I'm smart enough to realize you're in here with people that did poor behavior. And you don't look down on these people. You're going to learn from each person here. You're going to learn something today from each one of these people. So I told them, I said, look, man, I'm like a sponge. I wanted to learn from you guys. Give me some advice. Man, these guys were great. I talked to them all. We hung out. We stayed up late talking. I went to bed that night. I prayed. Said, God, I surrender. I give up. I can let you tell me what my purpose is. And I can fulfill my God-given purpose in life. And I just completely surrendered and said, that's it for me. I obviously wreck everything I do, because I'm a human, man. I try to do worldly stuff. My flesh gets in the way, right? That's what I do. Paul in the Bible says, he says, I was abnormally born. When I read that, I was like, okay, wait a second, man. This being a Christian, I was always a Christian, right? But probably a poor one. But when I realized that a lot of the biblical characters they had a lot of issues, infidelity, a lot of stuff. They were like pretty wheels off.
They got their own battles too.
They had a lot of their own battles, man. And people struggle with faith. Like I hear some people when I try to get down and download what people are saying to me, and they say, yeah, man, my faith is, sometimes I'm like, hey man, Peter started sinking when he was walking on water because his faith was low. Like, Jesus told him in Matthew all the time, he said, ye of little faith. Even the apostles struggled with their faith. But after Jesus was, so you have the crucifixion, which is crazy, right? A lot of the Jewish people in the Bible in the biblical times were like, hey man, how's a Messiah get crucified and die? Okay, that happened historically. We can all admit that happened. Mm-hmm. Then Jesus is put in the tomb, and then they go back, Mary goes back, and Jesus is gone from the tomb. He's gone. He's risen. So she just tell him, so that's a big deal, right? He did exactly what he sees, God, right? So Jesus is God. So that's a big deal, right? So then Jesus is talking to the apostles, his disciples. He says in John 14:1, I think it's John 14:1, he says, let your hearts not be troubled. They're worried, man. He's leaving.
Yeah, they feel abandoned.
They feel abandoned. They're like, you're leaving us. And he says, let your hearts not be troubled. He said that because it was good news. Because he's not only is he ascending to the right of his Father in the kingdom to rule over the world, he's leaving with us the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit, our God is 3 in 1. So he said, I'm leaving you with the Holy Spirit, and now you have access to me every day, all day, no matter where you are. So when he said, let your hearts not be troubled, he doesn't lie. Nowhere in the Bible is there a contradiction. Nowhere is there a lie. He's telling them, let your hearts not be troubled, because that's for us. Let our hearts not be troubled. We have access to Jesus Christ every second of every single day. So when we say, well, I'm alone. So that's what I've worked on is my faith, right? So I went to school, and I went to Liberty. I'm going to school right now and I'm getting a degree in theology. I don't have a degree. So I started going to school right out from selling Texas Hog Bait. I took like, I don't know, it's like 45 hours of Sophia and some other stuff to get some basic stuff out of the way. Man, I worked like 12 hours a day for like 60 or 70 days straight, trying to get some college done until I could start my real school stuff. And I graduate, in December this year with my bachelor's, and then in January I start my master's. But my whole mission is kind of you can call it a men's ministry. That sounds real formal, but it's more of a, hey man, I know where you're at. I know. And I want to help guys understand, really, first of all, that when our faith is low, I want to show them some stuff that can prove to you that, hey, God is 100% real. And I can show you where he's real. And I can also 100% show you where your heart can 100% be transformed. 100 from stone to flesh, 100%. It can be done. And I think it's in Luke where Jesus is telling them, seek and you shall find, knock and I shall answer. He's telling you that when you pray, I'll answer your prayers. Now, you may not always like the answer, but he's going to answer your prayers, right? He's going to answer your prayers. And the chances are you're going to know the prayer was answered. But then you still have little faith, right? You still go, well, I don't know. I prayed about my drinking, right? I'm like praying about my drinking. I go, I don't know. God answered my prayers. I ended up in jail, right? So it's like,
not the way I wanted, but
not exactly the way I wanted. But he's like, hey man, I tried. That's the only place I can meet you that I knew you'd listen. So I did.
It's fascinating. It's fascinating quite story that you have. Now I want to roll back. I want to dwell back a little bit, and I want to get the story behind Texas Hog Bait. How do you create that product, and just run me through the process, and like, what was the idea? Where the idea came from?
So I was chief at Battalion 2, and my driver was Dal Winkler. And he and I are both from Johnson County, both the same country guys, So me and him talk about stuff, hunting, fishing all the time. Mm-hmm. Well, our captain there was Jonathan Patton, who likes to hunt and fish and do stuff too. So I was in there talking, and my mom had a bunch of pigs after my dad died on the property down, and I don't know how to do things kind of like mediocre, like go halfway, foot in. No, man, I'm a blast off, bro. Put me all the way in the game. I jump feet first and everything. So I was sitting there talking to Dad, and we were making baits and doing some stuff, and I said, hey, man, I'm starting a company. It's going to be called Texas Hog Bait. It doesn't exist. I already looked it all up and stuff. I said, it doesn't even exist. I said, we're Texas, man. We're the biggest, state in the United States. We got the biggest population of feral hogs in America. So we started tinkering with some stuff, man. And I was like, hey, look, everything we do has to be top shelf. If we're going to put the Texas name behind this, then we got to be top shelf. So we started making some stuff. And one day, I think it was Jonathan or Dow, they knew my mom. They would go down there and trap pigs. My mom's place. One day, we had ones and twos. One day, we had like 30 to 40 show up and hit the bait. And we were like, whoa, that's it. Jackpot, baby. And we did it again. And we duplicated it. Moved it, duplicated it. Moved it somewhere else, duplicated it. Moved it across the state, duplicated it.
Basically, you were trying to get rid of the one-off.
Yes.
Let's see if
we would look at other people's attractants and see what they were doing. Mm-hmm. And we would even send some of their stuff to labs. And I knew this, that like, if you're going to make an attractant for feral hogs or for anything at all, it kind of doesn't need to be a gimmick. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many of them that were. Like Moultrie and those other guys, they can get away with it. They can get away with making a gimmick because they're huge, man. They got SKUs on everybody. People just don't know.
They got their brand all over it, yeah.
People don't know. They don't know that that's literally milled alfalfa hay. And they'll throw molasses in there. They'll take milled alfalfa hay and molasses, and then they'll sell it in a bag, and you don't know. You don't know what you're buying. You're like, hey, man, they ate it. But the scent, so it's like a sphere, right? we used to always talk about this fear of smell. Pigs can smell 5 to 7 miles, right? So corn is a small, small circle. But when you take things like what we were doing at Texas Hog Bait, like the milled corn, the milled peanuts, the molasses, the added ingredient that would make it smell really strong, like taste sweet, like Kool-Aid and stuff, which was you had to figure out. So what I did was I figured out, how do they make Kool-Aid smell and taste like Kool-Aid in a tiny little package? How do they take Mio in a tiny little package and one little squirt makes your water taste like that? How do you do that? So that's where I went, was I got to find out how they do that, because that's what we're going to do. And it took me, man, about almost 2 years maybe to figure that out. I figured it out. So I don't want to blow their cover, right? But it's nothing in that attractant that's not supposed to be there. So we figured that out. Then we started really moving it. Started moving. Well, we made just a regular, that's when we had like a regular LRA, just the green bag. Well, then we made the Sawine Crush. Well, I'll give credit to Ryan Shepard. He was riding with me in the Suburban one day, and I told him, he goes, man, you ought to call it Sawine Punch. Like, get it? Sawine? I was like, oh yeah, Shep.
Sawine.
I get it.
All right.
So I said, hey, I'm actually going to call it that. So we made the Sawine Crush, and man, it started blowing off the shelves, right? But we're teeny tiny, man. You don't realize all the stuff that goes into the logistics of this thing. We talked about maintenance of your lawnmower. You got to sharpen the blade. You got to make sure it's got oil in it.
I can't even imagine just the permits and the
so you have to go through the ag department and get, permission to become a legal, like a feed mill. Mm-hmm. Then when you sell, like in Georgia, you got to pay like a feed, like a agricultural. It's like $50, $100.
State fees.
You got to pay state fees. So your ingredients have to meet the national guidelines. You can't have stuff in there that's considered toxic to because certain states may say, no, that's banned in our state. Well, if you're going to be in Pennsylvania, you can't have a banned product in Pennsylvania. You're not going to be able to be there. You're going to get fined for being there, even though you're in Buc-ee's or you're in another distribution center. So once we got all that stuff sorted out, well, now, you got to have this UPC code.
Oh, yeah, the UPC.
So it's like this own individual, what this particular product's.
You have to be registered and everything.
Yeah, so you have to get a UPC code. That UPC code is attached to a UPC code that goes to a case. UPC code is attached to a case that's attached to a pallet. So you see the UPC codes have to all be linked to an entire pallet all the way down to the bag.
Sometimes you got like 5 UPCs.
You have 4 UPCs, easy.
4, easy. Yeah.
Easy. So you'll easily run, your UPCs can get crazy. So figured all that stuff out on the fly, right? Then we start realizing, packaging. Where do you get packaging at? I wanted to do everything made. First of all, I care about Texas first, right? So everything has to come out of Texas as if it come out of Texas. Second was, I'm an American-made company. It has to come out of America. I mean, we don't want to sell out. Which is really a sad part of the deal, because, we shipped out constitutions with all of our stuff. We were 100% born and bred Texas and America. And we weren't going to, another person that does the same thing that really works hard is like Sniper Hog Lice, Jason Brooks.
Oh, Sniper, yeah.
Those guys too. Those guys are all about doing everything they possibly can in America. But when America says this same trinket's going to cost you $15 versus $1.50, well, then you obviously can't sustain a business plan like that. No. So you have to go and do other. That's just the way it is. There's no other way around it. People don't understand that. Even the United States military's uniforms don't come from the United States, right? They come from other countries. That's just the way it is, right? There's nothing wrong with that, as long as you're not becoming that, right? If you're not becoming that. We didn't become that. I wasn't going to become that. One of my deals was in running the business was that people matter. Your customers matter. Every single one of them matter. Brother, I would get phone calls from these old dudes lived out in one of them, Alabama, Georgia.
Deep in the woods.
Call me. I can't get this stuff online. I don't do all this nonsense. I said, hey, no worries. Be sitting at my desk at the shop. Tell me this, where you live? I'll write their address down. All right, what do you need? He'll tell me what he wants. I will literally print an invoice off, stick it in their box. That dude will mail me a check like it's 1980. But I'll totally do that for these guys because that's what we do. We're an American company, man. This
Taking
is
care of people.
We're a Texas-based company that literally is old school values that we're 100% not going to turn you away. We easily could have said, man, you don't even count to us because it doesn't matter. It wasn't anything. It wasn't enough money to worry about. It was more of a hassle than anything. But is that the kind of business you want to run where you just like, they don't matter to you? They do matter to me. Every single person I've ever dealt with mattered to me. Nobody. The only people that got on my nerves were occasionally people would ask you to donate to a nonprofit or something, and then they would do weird stuff with what you'd give them. I gave it to a veterans organization one time, and we walked in, and I gave them some hats, and it was going to go to a person that was going to enter a raffle. Well, there was a VIP person that showed up that was like loaded. Lady was loaded. We had cool hats. We had all of our hats custom made, 100%. He hands her the hat. Oh, you can have it. I was like, bro, what are you doing, man? That lady's got money. That's not for her. This is for the dude that came up here that doesn't have a ton of money, that wants to pay a $2 raffle to win $200 worth of Texas hog bait gear. And that's who I want to win it, right?
The people.
The people, Texas Hunt for the Cure, those guys, we would do anything for those guys. And we still to this day, if they called me and needed something, I'd do for those guys. I love those guys, man. They do God's work out there, man. I've seen what they do. They do good stuff. Definitely. Sean Schrader is another good guy to talk to, man. He was with me when we were doing this stuff, coming to shows and helping me. He wasn't asking for any money. Schrader wasn't asking for money. He was coming to shows because he believed in our product, because of the fact that we took care of people and we did what we said we were going to do. We loved people and we loved hunting. We loved killing pigs. We had that in common with us and we were cool.
It is funny that you mentioned it. Paul and we were talking about it. Like,
yeah, Paul Tyson was one of my first guys.
It's like, hey, man, just one event, like, bring the commonality of everyone. Like, people like to hunt. And in the essence, we had the same core values: America, being proud, country, God, and family.
That's right.
And I was like, you know what? Now you're talking about it. You're right. That's like bring people together. You know what I mean? One event like hunting hogs or fishing bring people together.
Man, Paul Tyson's heart is 100% in the right place.
Oh yeah,
I'm telling you for a fact. There's some sketch stuff that ever people would say or do, but I'm telling you, I know Paul well. Paul's heart, most of those guys' hearts are all in the right place.
It is.
It's just the communication barrier. Somewhere somebody put up a wall because somebody did something and they didn't like it, and then they just didn't talk to this guy. And in the hunting world's weird like that. We eat our own or something, and I see that happen all the time. If people would call me and say, "Hey man, I'm thinking about starting a hog attractor company," you would think that would be dumb to call me and say that. Like, why would I help somebody who wants to be my competition? First of all, I'll promise you, brother, if you think you can beat what I'm doing now, not arrogantly, go for it, man, because I would love for somebody to knock me off the mountain, right? Because this is hard. And I know, and I would tell them the truth, though. I would say, look, man, I'm gonna shoot you straight, brother. This is almost a mission impossible. If I would have known what all it took to get into where I'm at, to where I got Texas hog bait at, I would have quit a long time ago because it is. But, when I sold it, it was on its way up, right? It was just got into the whole entire country of Japan. Biggest attracting company in the country of Japan.
You made it internationally?
We made it internationally.
I have a question. I want to roll back before you go get ahead of me. On the R&D, on the early stages, until you get, you started like researching the name. You find out the name wasn't taken, the Texas hog bait, and you kind of like snowball from there, and then you got the final product. You had your first bag. on the R&D, how much money do you spend? I mean, you just give me a ballpark. I don't want to know the exact number, but
I don't know the exact numbers. Thousands of dollars. Wow. Thousands of dollars. R&D was thousands of dollars. There's people that are
before
out,
selling the first bag.
people are out. We spent so much money. Texas hog bait is hands down the most unique. I mean, I don't own the company. I don't really care about the people that own the company. That doesn't matter. I don't have anything with those guys at all. Like, we're not buddies or anything. That company is built different. I would say this when I owned it. It is built different. I know this because I built it. It is built different. It is built to net results. A jug of that liquids, man, that stuff should be $40. Based on what's in that actual jug, I'm telling you, man, people waste it. What they don't realize is that jug, there's no one near that what's in that jug maybe in the world. Nobody. Matter of fact, one of our co-packers that packed our liquids and made it, he said, "Man, are you sure you want to put this much sugar in this thing?" I said, "Absolutely, man, it works." "Yeah, but it's going to cost you extra." I was like, "Man, look, I'll eat my profit margins up." See, in business, people will say that's stupid. Why is it stupid to make a top shelf product? Well, it's for pigs. I get that. But you don't have to use as much of it as you do. You know, Tag Floyd, trapper in Stephenville, I brought him, he and I are best buds, right? So I bring Tag all these jugs, and Blackout was one of them, right? And he goes, "This one right here, black licorice, that's going first." I said, it's your call, man. Because you do this side of it for a living. Tag's very much the kind of guy that shoots straight from the hip. He's not going to sugarcoat anything to not hurt your feelings. He's going to shoot you straight. So when Tag said that, we were like, "Yeah, man, let's rock and roll." So we shipped it all over the United States. Used to, we had 4 quadrants in the state of Texas we would hit first. Then we got bigger. Then we scattered it. We were in Scandinavia, right? Checking for bears and stuff. So we would ship bait all over the United States. We shipped bait to Germany to see. They loved it, right? The Germans loved it. They wanted it in Germany. We tried to get it in Germany. But that didn't, there's only one of me, right? The company wasn't making enough money to really pay a full staff because, I'm in the process of growing the company, right? So we got to back to the maintenance side and the logistics side. You got to have a shop, you got to have forklift, you got to have trailers, you got to have
transportation.
You got to have, conveyor belts.
Oh, you got
to have a distribution, a facility, bag filler,
wrapping.
Right. You got to have all these things. Shipping. You got to be shipping. You got to have marketing.
Pallets. You have to
pallets.
Have pallets. Oh man, it's a lot of stuff you have to get.
It's a lot. There's a lot of stuff to it. So I got to a point where I was like really overwhelmed, but I had it down. I mean, I could literally do it with one hand at that point. Somebody else would need for somebody else to do what I was doing, they would need at least 3 people.
3 people. I was thinking the same thing.
They would need at least 3 people to do what I could do because I grew it, right? I birthed it, but also go back to the boiling frog, right? You don't realize how hard you're working when you do it in a slow process. When you're working 7 days a week, man, 7 days in my shipping. How do you compete with Amazon when Amazon wants to get something shipped out? I shipped out packages every day. If you ordered today, you got shipped out today.
I have tried. To be honest, I have tried your Texas hog bait once back in the day, and I won a raffle one day with Jimmy Killen.
Oh yeah,
yeah, I won, and I went and picked them up over there, and that was the first time I used it, and it was basically a magnet.
Yeah.
Pigs. It was a magnet. I dropped it early in the morning because I knew I was gonna stay there throughout the night. And sir, let me tell you, it didn't last like 6 hours. Laying there.
No, it typically won't.
It's laying there, and then just like as soon as the sun came down just a little bit and started getting like a little.
They'll eat the dirt, shadow. Man. They'll eat the dirt.
They just like came out of nowhere.
Yeah, they'll eat the dirt. Well, see, that's the thing. Pigs can smell 5 to 7 miles, so the corn's good. It'll keep them there, but you got to get something to get them to the corn.
Iguanas, and I was doing the iguana hunt. Then basically got the meat from the iguana, skin it.
You eat those things?
No, I never ate my product. So I
don't know about eating a lizard, man.
no. Well, it tastes like chicken. That's what I
That's
heard.
what everybody says about everything.
Right. So yeah,
Everything can't taste like chicken.
no, it doesn't. They know.
Like frog legs don't taste like chicken. They taste like frog legs.
Never tried frog. My son wants to do it. I'm like,
Have you ever tried rattlesnake?
Never.
So we were at a show in Little Rock, Arkansas. Me and Carl, my wife. First of all, we stayed in an Airbnb that was in the bad part of town, and this thing had like this basement, like it had this cellar, and it had like a padlocks on it.
On the cellar.
On the cellar,
Oh, no.
going in, and it came from inside the house. So it was like, and you could see a window from the back. This was weird, man. It was like we thought there was like we were pretty sure there was like some sort of like clown down there or something. So I got a lot of hard time for that. But we showed up the next morning, and these food trucks were there. And this one guy had a food truck, and he was selling rattlesnake dumplings. Bro, that was the best dumplings I've ever had.
Really?
They were spicy. Were good.
Right on point.
I love spicy food. Yeah, the dumplings were right on point, man. It was good. We talk about that a lot because they were delicious, right?
Right. My son would eat that. He would like that stuff.
I'll eat anything once or twice, just because I'm not scared.
Just to try it.
Just to try it. Yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
hey, man, I want to try it. I mean, I don't want to eat something nasty, like just to try it. Like people talk about eating coyotes and stuff. I'm not eating a dog, man. I mean, I would. Push came to shove, but
I ate a dog. Korea. They eat them over there. They got.
Did you know you were eating a dog before you ate it?
Yeah, they got like duck farms just dedicated for that.
Dogs?
Ducks farm. Yeah.
Does it taste like chicken too?
It kind of chewy though.
I bet it, yeah.
It's I don't know. I would say if you look at them at the first glance, it looked like beef fajitas, but
Oh, yeah.
it's chewy.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like it would be like.
No.
I mean, if you think about it, if it was a bigger deal, we would be eating dogs here, right? They'd be like ground dog meat, whatever. Because there's lots of dogs.
Right.
You could have a dog farm easy. It just doesn't sound attractive, man. Doesn't sound good. Doesn't sound good. Like cats don't like bobcats, mountain lions. No, that doesn't sound good, man.
It doesn't.
Bear, that's greasy.
People eat beavers.
Yeah, seems like
see.
it'd be greasy too.
see.
Gristly too.
I seen that happen. I don't know. I would not eat a rodent.
Squirrels, we eat those, rabbits and stuff, but still,
Rabbit in Puerto Rico, we eat a lot of rabbits.
they're good. Rabbits aren't bad.
Rabbit, yeah, I like rabbits.
Yeah, they're not bad. Rabbits are good. Better than duck. Really?
I don't like the smell of it.
Of duck?
Yeah, kind of strong smell. You know what I mean? Kind of like very strong. But rabbit, I ate rabbit. That's pretty. I like
Yeah,
it.
rabbit's good. The first time me and my cousin, we were probably 13. We shot a squirrel. Shot a couple squirrels with shotguns, and we brought them back to the house and we skinned them out. We were like, we're old enough to do this on our own. We cooked them. They were disgusting. They were so gross. We thought they were good though. We pretended like they were good. We were like, man, these are great,
You
man.
put a season and like, oh, they're gonna be great.
We used terrible seasonings. It just tasted like raw meat, like barely cooked meat. I'm surprised we didn't die. But it was pretty gross, but we thought we were cool, And it's before they had like TV shows like that, right?
Oh,
Back in the day, which I really appreciate and kind of miss. Remember when we used to like want to watch a movie, we'd have to go like to Blockbuster or some movie rental store and go in there, and then that was a challenge, right?
Yeah, that was. Oh, you have to get there before everybody gets there.
Well, you
'cause
got to get there before everybody else
They got like
gets there.
10 copies and that's it.
And then now we got to figure out what are we going to watch.
True.
You didn't have cell phones, the iPhone, go look and see what's show. You just knew there was a commercial said that Top Gun was out, right? And it's like, hey man, put me on the list, bro, because I want to watch Top Gun or whatever the movie we want to watch. And now we talked about this before the podcast was instant gratification, because that's what's the problem is today is that you don't have to wait for anything.
It's all right here.
It's all right there. I'll tell you what was really cool. My daughter and her husband, when they got married, they kind of expedited him going to boot camp. For some reason, because he was going to go into special operations. So they expedited him going. So my daughter ended up staying here with us while he was in boot camp in San Antonio. and she was having to write him letters. So they were having to write letters, snail
Old
mail
school.
letters.
Old school.
I thought that was so cool. Is she would check the mail every day to get some sort of communication with her husband, right? Mm-hmm. And that was kind of his highlight too, from the outside world, was to get a letter. That sounds like, man, that's crazy. But really, man, it was kind of cool before we. Technology's great and all, but it's kind of ruining It's kind of ruining the moment. It's kind of taking a couple of special moments away. So now the people end up doing that bar raising thing where it's like, well, I can do this or that and whatever, and have it right now, see it right now, watch the movie right now, get an airplane ticket right now, fly out in the morning.
People become impatient. They can't wait. They gotta have it. It is like a must-have, and the time is now. It's not like 20 seconds later. They want it now.
Yeah, that's happening, and individual autonomy is. There's a commercial that I saw, a Red Bull commercial. I was writing a paper, and there was this Red Bull commercial, and they said like this parrot came down. And there's these other 3 parakeets or whatever sitting there parroting stuff back and forth, and they're like, I don't remember what they were saying, but they told the other parrot, "You're not the boss of us. You're not the boss of us. You can drink a Red Bull.
Yeah.
Be your true, authentic self." And the 3 birds flew off. They were fighting. They're like telling him, "You can't tell us who to be or what to be." And he said, sometimes, individuality can become a problem. And individuality can become a problem. When you focus on becoming your true autonomous self, are you really becoming your true autonomous self? Or are you becoming this construct of what society thinks is something that's anarchy or something kind of ruffles some feathers, or I'm going to be this person and people don't like it, this doesn't matter. Like, what are you doing, man? You're separating yourself from the masses, which I don't think is a problem. I don't think you should ever follow the masses anyway. Mm-hmm. But when you want to be something so radical, man, just be a good person, that's what we talked about. After I dealt with some of this stuff, I noticed people always wear, like with the war going on in Israel since October 7th, mm-hmm. You'll see a lot of people there wear the Israeli flag. Well, during the riots of George Floyd, there were BLM flags, the little pins.
Right.
And Black Lives Matter, and LGBT, America, MAGA, Joe Biden, whatever. There's tons of these hills that people want to die on. And really, that is probably the most dangerous place you can let your mind go. Because now you have this ideal of this is what America's supposed to be. Mm-hmm. This is what America's supposed to be. So now what we talked about was the left goes further left because the right goes further right. So now they're catapulting, lava on each other. And it's like they push and push and push. And so now it's in order to be heard, I got to talk louder and I got to do something a little bit more radical to get their attention. Then it's like poking a stick in an ant bed, right? There's everywhere. People are getting stung. People are, and that just doesn't go away. Where do we come back to center ground as a country? Where do we come back to center ground as humanity? Where do we come back to center ground? And really, that's kind of my mission is with men is go back to the fundamentals of some simple fundamental stuff like hard work. Don't procrastinate. If that warning light goes off, start to make decisions now. Don't wait until you're in crisis mode and say, I handle crises better anyway. Don't say that. That's not true. It's always better to prevent a fire versus to fight a fire, right? I mean, right. But you really don't know what it's like and then until you have the fire. Then you don't want to have it again. So we want to I want to learn more about the struggles people deal with, and I want to help figure out a way. to kind of just equip some people with some simple things, man. Like the deal Rodney and I are going to do is called standard operating procedures, SOPs. It's about developing an initial action plan. So like when the warning light goes off, there's a problem. So what we do is we call that problem out. I've identified a problem. So now we've identified a problem. So now we we identify a problem, develop a plan. We got to have a plan to solve the problem. Down here at 9 o'clock, we're going to implement the plan. We're going to put this plan in action. Whatever it may be, maybe it's, writing in a journal. Maybe it's, training, watching YouTube video, doing something to make yourself a better version of whatever it is. And then over here, we're going to go, well, that's 6, 9. We're going to say, how we doing? We're going to evaluate that. Let's look at this. Is what I developed this plan and implemented this plan for this problem I have, is it working?
Mm-hmm.
If it's not, we go back to 12 o'clock and we say, okay, problem's still here. Nothing's changed. Let's adjust the plan. There's no plan B. There's no plan C. It's just making adjustments. You just make adjustments. You can't have plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D in life. Just adjust your plan. If you need more water, add more water. That's not it doesn't require a whole new plan. Just adjust your plan. You had a good plan. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you got to scrap a plan though, because sometimes it's dumb. Drinking more, whatever.
Right, absolutely. It's just a matter of having the SOP or having a backup plan or somebody to call, be like, hey, I'm getting anxiety or I'm getting this or that, whatever the case may be. You have like, okay, now that's the trigger to activate the plan. And once you, like you say, like once you have identified the plan, what's going on, what the issue, then you like, okay, let me go for a run.
Yeah.
Let me go pray. Let me call a friend. Let my wife know. So get people involved so they know what's going on within you, so they can even help you and get you out of that situation. And you don't go far into the dark place. You know what I mean? So
that's really important too, Julio, is to let your wife know real quick. Like I'll tell my wife real fast, like, hey man, something, I don't know what it is. I'm sideways today.
You feel iffy about something.
Oh yeah, I'm a little sideways today. She'll say, well, whatever you're doing, it's working because I didn't even notice. And I'll go, okay, cool. Because what I'll do is I'll just shut my mouth. Right? You see that picture of that submarine over there?
Yeah. So I first walked in, I saw it.
So this is what I tell people too. And we'll show them that submarine because this is important. People always say, I need to lose weight. I need to do this. I need to do that. So the first thing they do is they get on social media or something and they blast it out. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Hey, look, man, without sounding rude, just shut up. Shut up. Shut up. Stop talking to everybody about what you're doing. Get in your submarine, go down 3,000 feet, and that is my submarine right there. That's my control panel. I get in that submarine, and I go down, and I don't talk about it. The thing is, when you go down there and fix those things. Solve those problems. Spend some time alone. Spend some time with people that can actually help you. Even if the guy says, well, man, this guy he just tells me the truth. Well, the truth is a blade, right? So is love. Love will cut you coming in and cut you coming out. But if you love somebody, then you're going to tell them the truth. And that sometimes isn't always what we want to hear, but it's really beneficial. Now, that's a slippery slope too, right? Because you don't want to tell somebody, you don't want to quench somebody doing something when they're on, like when they say, I'm going to quit smoking or I'm going to quit drinking. Yeah, whatever, man. You never quit in the first, you've said this 14 times. That's why I want you to be quiet about it. That's why I want you to just go get in your submarine, shut your hatch. You don't need to talk about it because when you come back up to the surface, you still shouldn't have to talk about it. People should see there's something different about Julio, man. I don't know what it is. See, in 1 Peter 3:15, it says, always be ready to give an account for the reason for the hope you have. Well, that's your account for the reason for the hope you have. Because if you don't have hope, see, I think our country's a little bit lacking in the hope. If we drew blood on everybody in America, they would be like, hey, let's look in the hope lab. I think we're lacking some hope. we have to have hope in something, right? Because if there's no purpose in living other than that, but really what people's purpose should be is connecting with other people, connecting, authentic communication, talking. Hey man, let's go grab a cup of coffee. Let's go on a walk. Let's go on a run. Let's go do whatever. But also I want people to get comfortable spending time with themselves, right? Be comfortable with who you are before you think you can build a relationship with somebody else. Figure yourself out, man. Go deep down inside the ocean. Go deep down. Go do a deep dive and really figure out what it is you want to do in life. I don't care how old you are. It doesn't matter. You may be working at 55 years old in a dead-end job that you absolutely are still miserable from, but you've built that wall of fear of stepping outside that. Or maybe you're too cool with your too good of an ego to tell your wife she's beautiful. You know what I mean? Like, but we all need to do a better job of that. I mean, we always could do a better job of and if your wife drops a $200 vase in the floor and it breaks, is it really that big of a deal? Is it really? I mean, if you do it, it's not a big deal. You may beat yourself up a little bit over it, but you can't take certain things way too serious. There is a sense of urgency. We need to have a sense of urgency. I'm not saying we all need to go sing Kumbaya, brother. I'm talking about you got to have a sense of urgency. What I'm talking about right now, it's a sense of urgency.
Yeah.
Some people need to get in that submarine right now. They need to shut up right now, stop talking about it, sit down, draw a line right there. I don't care. If you want to go to the gym every day, put your shoes on. You know, just put them on. Just put your workout shoes on. It takes friction to get traction. You have to, there's going to be some grating. It's going to be a little painful, but just do it. Just do little tiny steps. You know, if you're trying to quit drinking, maybe say, you know, I'm going to quit drinking hard alcohol or whatever, but those are drop dead days, man. Just decide you're going to do it and put a piece of leather in your mouth and bite down, man. But I don't identify more than one problem at a time, because then you're going to get overwhelmed and you're going to create more problems. See, now you're going to overcompensate. Yeah. You're going to stress yourself out. And now you're going to start smoking dope or drinking booze, you know, because you're like, holy crap, man, this plan's so horrible.
Yeah, it's too much. It's too much weight, too much stuff to deal with. You get your hands full, and then you cannot swim out of it.
No.
Because you carrying all this stuff that happened. But now circle back to the stuff that you mentioned about we as a country, we're so far left or so far right that we kind of throwing lava and throwing dirt to each other, and people screaming to each other because they cannot even have a common sense or basically a simple conversation without bringing a bunch of stuff like racism and all these labels that people put to each other. What do you think that people can do to kind of build a bridge and close the gap on that level?
So there's a doctrine called the doctrine of Imago Dei. Imago Dei is Latin for image of God. Mm-hmm. So when you talk about racism and different things like that, no matter who you are in the world, whatever, race is a really weird thing. You know, if an alien came down to Earth, they wouldn't know that. They wouldn't know even male from female. They would just say human. There's a human down here. These are humans.
Right.
So, but Imago Dei, the doctrine of Imago Dei is every single human was literally made in the image of God. Both male and female, made in the image of God. So if anybody thinks, hey man, I'm only, gonna support Latin America. I'm only gonna support, black businesses, or you're thinking too much about this stuff. You're making an idol of your race. You're making an idol of just something as simple as your skin color. It's really not that important. You're not that big of a deal wherever you are. You're literally a creature here that was created in God's image, each one of us equally. So when a person thinks that You know, Jesus says the meek inherit the earth. So I said my word for 2024, which we should all have a word that we should like try to say, hey, I'm gonna try to fulfill this word. My word for 2024 was meekness, because I'm not a meek person, but I try to be, right? Because I mean, you don't want to be a totally harmless person. You get pushed around, just get kicked in the ribs. That's not me. But to be accepting and to realize, see, when people can wrap their heads around the fact that the person that's yelling the loudest has the biggest problems, it doesn't mean that there aren't consequences that they need to face. But at the same time, when you see all the bickering that goes on, there's uneasiness in those people. That's why I said probably about 10% of people in the country actually do get it. But then there's a pissing contest where they will go to a family reunion and bring up abortion.
Oh, yeah.
But there's a way to bring up abortion, right? Like I'm 100% a pro-life guy. But I'm not going to get into a fist fight over it with you if you just let me explain my position, right? But why would I bring that up out of the blue? Why would I just randomly bring up something out of the blue if I'm not being sincere? You should be sincere. Now, these people that do, like, you see the college campuses doing the pro-Hamas stuff and things like that, and it'll make you irritated. And I don't really think a lot of them that get on these hills that they want to die on, is a lot of them on both sides. They don't really even know they just don't like you. That's it. Right. Julio, they just don't like you. Other than there are people that do know why they are, that's when you have to just say, hey, look, what do you do? What do you and I do? What you and I do is we just become a good example to people. You work hard. You thank people for doing what they do. If they do a good job, you say, hey, thank you. You go out of your way when somebody, this just sounds simple, but like really hard to find good help today. I mean, like you go customer service at Walmart or Home Depot, and used to you'd go in there and they had like a master electrician in the electrical section. Now you got somebody back there that has to look at their phone and go, you're looking for a 110 outlet, says aisle 17C. Like, what if that person didn't really know a whole lot about those and they had a couple questions? I mean, now you're going to go home and get electrocuted because you talked to the dude at Home Depot who literally didn't even watch a YouTube video on how to do it.
Right.
But when somebody does do that, you make sure you say, hey, look, you did a good job. We're always real good to give crappy reviews, but are we really good at giving good reviews? So when you get a good experience at a restaurant or whatever, I mean, we need to tell them. We got to tell them, you did good, man. You exceeded expectations. I mean, you know why? Because you just did your job. But we're not used to that.
No.
Because a lot of people don't want to, they'll be on their phones constantly, man.
24/7. It's just like they call it now an addiction.
It is an addiction.
It's an addiction.
I think the average person touches his phone, picks their phone up 2,400 times in a day.
That's a lot.
In a day. Look at that like that. Think about it. All day, man. It's like sometimes you look at your phone.
People are having neck issues right now. They have like...
Yeah, but they'll just look at their phone. They don't even know why they're looking at their phone.
No, they just grab it. I just need
to check.
It's just
what are you checking? I don't know.
Mm-hmm. It's like finding purpose in life. They don't have a purpose. If I touch my phone, it's like, I gotta have a purpose. And I'm trying to train myself because I used to grab the phone all the time. And I'm trying to train myself, and I told my wife about it. I'd be like, I need to be better in what I do. What I mean is, if I want to do something in life, I would, like you was, I would be committed to do it. Like now I'm doing the podcast and I'm committed to do it. But now I'm just like focused. Like if I touch my phone, I'm going to check my email, text somebody. I'm going to have a purpose when I touch my phone. It's not like be scrolling on Facebook for hours on end. Because then when you look back, you spend about an hour and a half, 2 hours just scrolling.
Longer than that.
Oh, longer than that. Imagine, like you said, you picked it up 2,400 times a week, a day, whatever. And you spend 3, 4, 6 hours. How much productive you can be on those 6 hours a day. Let's say you spend the time scrolling on Facebook. I can do a lot of stuff in 20 minutes.
There's this deal. This guy sent me this really cool video, and it was like 15 minutes long. And that video ended up being a catalyst into reading this guy's book and then reading this other guy's book. and then developing this class called Leadership Malpractice. So I thought, hey, wait a second. Let's go back up. Let's look at this. So I watched a video that was almost 15 minutes long. So if you took your day and you said, what's 1% of your day is 14.4 minutes. So let's round it up to 15 minutes. So if we lived by this rule of 1% of being better people, if you said, I'm going to watch a video for 4 days, I'm going to do something for 4 days to become a better fill in the blank, right? A better, let's say a better wife, a better husband, a better coach, a better father. So if I'm going to be a better husband, I'm going to look at some videos and watch this guy's video. It's 15. If it's an article, read an article. 15 minutes. Just 15 minutes. Just spend that much time becoming a better version of who you are. That can be a catalyst into something else. Like, hey, I didn't realize who this guy was, and he writes books. So then you go and you end up getting that guy's book, and then that guy's book talks about this other guy named, Barry Waymiller or Bob Chapman. Bob Chapman writes a book called Everybody Matters. You ended up reading Simon Sinek, Leaders Eat Last, and then you read Bob Chapman's book, Everybody Matters, and then you're into this deal, and now you got, that was all because of one 15-minute video that you watched. It's a catalyst to bigger things in life. If you realize we go back to that talking about the identify the problem. The first thing you want to have is you want to be mentally stable. So in the fire service, we have life safety, incident stabilization, property conservation. So when you look at life safety is broken down into two categories. A is firefighter safety. B is civilian safety. So if we don't take care of us first, we're safe, putting on our PPE, doing this stuff first, and we can't take care of the civilian, which is B. Same thing with you. If you don't take care of you first, like, hey, I got to make sure I'm eating. I got to make sure I'm sleeping.
Right.
I got to make sure I'm drinking water. I got to make sure that my mind's functioning good. That if I have any distractions, that I can get them out and be bold about that. Like, hey, talk to your wife, have a relationship good enough to where you don't have to be the tough guy all the time. You're still a tough guy. You're already still a tough guy. You build things with your hands. You bleed. Once you get that down, then you can start really being an example, right? You ever go like on a deployment and there's that one guy, man, and he's not drinking and partying and doing crazy stuff. And you're all making fun of him. You know what I mean? Like that guy, he's over there reading his Bible,
Right. He'll do anything.
He's a fuddy-duddy, whatever. Right. But when things get sideways and you're scared of dying, or you're scared you're in a bad relationship, your wife sent you a letter, she's going to leave you, that's the guy you're going to. You're going to that guy over there because he's stable, because he has stability. His feet are firmly on the ground. That's what we want to be. We want to be those guys. We want to help make those guys that, man, there's still a lot of fun. There's a ton of fun in not drinking, trust me. You're still wild and all this other stuff, and you still can be funny and fun and have a good time and still be hard and all this other stuff. Just be stable, man. Like, be stable. Have that peace.
Foundation.
Bring that peace to everywhere you go, though, when people know that, hey, look, when things get bad, I want this guy over here, my back. Because he's willing to die for the cause, right? And he's not going to talk about it because he's lived in his submarine for so long that he's conditioned himself to, instead of talking about it all the time, he's just being about it, right? He doesn't have to go around telling people how much of it. That's what social media has created. Social media creates these mentalities where I can be somebody that I kind of want to be, but not really. And I can say something that I typically wouldn't say to your face.
Right. It's like you build a facade.
Yeah, you build a fake facade, though, and you stay behind that thing, and then it's not a good place to be. You always would be willing to not be afraid of dying, right? That's a good place to be because we all have that in common. I mean, so when you think about it, everybody 100% is their end is near. I was on the airplane flying out to Florida the other day, and I prayed before both times we took off. Mm-hmm. And I just was like, hey, if this is my time to go, if for some reason this plane crashes in the ocean, just make my family have peace. Just comfort my family, knowing that I'm okay with it, whatever. I mean, obviously we don't understand. The story is in Acts when Saul of Tarsus, who ended up being the Apostle Paul, he was persecuting. Stephen was preaching, and they said, I'm going to kill you, Christians. And there's been 50 million Christians martyred. Maybe 50 plus million to this day that have been martyred in the name of Christendom. But think about this. Now, Jesus is one person because he's Jesus. Jesus is God, right? So he's on the cross. He says, forgive them, Father, for they did not know, right? But Stephen's not Jesus. Stephen's a guy just like me and you. And they're buried this guy in the sand to his waist, and they're going to kill him with rocks. And they're hitting this dude with stones. And in the process of them killing this guy with rocks, of all things, right? How bad would that be? That's terrible to be died with rocks. Unless one conks you in the head and knocks you out. He says, God, please don't hold these sins over these men. My question is, what did Stephen know to say something like that? What did Stephen know? He didn't know anything different than what we know, other than the fact that the eyewitness account of what Stephen was told about Jesus was close and fresh. So today we still have the same Bible, the same words, everything's the same, but we are afraid of dying, or we lack faith, which, believe me, there's a million Christians that are going to listen to this and go, man, I have faith. And when I say, yeah, but a lot of times you have little faith. We do. Yeah, you're right. Sometimes I struggle with my faith, right? Sometimes people do struggle with their faith. It's like, so you either are going towards God or you're going away from God. So that there's peace there. And I'm not trying to have this isn't like Christendom podcast. I'm just talking about peace in life. And the true peace in life is when people can sincerely have a relationship with God and surrender to that Bible. And the Bible's the intent of the entire Bible, the way it's written, if you understand from Genesis all the way to the end, it's designed to help you prosper in life, but it's also designed to protect you. It's why right in the beginning in Genesis, he created man and he created woman in his image. So you can say, well, Adam was a white guy. Was he? I mean, was he? Because if Imago Dei is correct, which it is, then we don't know. We can't put God in a box. We can't put Jesus in a box. We can't put these people in a box and say, well, that's what it's going to be. That's, No, the whole point of what I'm saying is when Stephen was killed by stones, he didn't say, screw those guys. People didn't get on social media and start saying, we're going to kill these guys. They have to tell him what he knew. So look, it's like this. My buddy lost his daughter when she was 13. She went to heaven for sure, right? She went to be with Jesus. If you're sad down here because we lost somebody, but if we knew what they knew, because see, they would be up there with Jesus and say, look, they just don't know. They just don't know. They don't know what I know now. We don't know what death is like, but we're terrified of it because it's one of those things that we're fearful of, things we don't understand.
Right.
So people get fearful. So they build a wall, right? And they live afraid of dying. They live afraid of doing something because they're afraid of looking foolish. So that fear wall is up with a lot of people, my man. But if we know, if you know you're going to go to heaven when you die, then there's a lot of peace in life right there. There's a lot of peace.
All by itself, yeah.
All by itself.
It's all by itself, yeah. So I heard some people saying that quote, be like, hey, if it happens tomorrow, I'm happy. And sometimes I'm like, why you mean you happy? And they're like, I'm in peace. I'm good.
Well, we're just pilgrims here, really. I mean, if you think about it, living in America, living in Saudi Arabia, whatever. I mean, what that's when you really have to go when you say, what is your purpose in life? So Romans 12 talks about spiritual gifts. See, this is what a lot of churches and pastors don't talk about. So we're given these spiritual gifts from the Holy Spirit, from the grace of the Holy Spirit. This is real. Every person has, some people may have the same gift, but the point of these gifts, like somebody may do something and feel some way, and it's like, man, I feel like I should tell people this stuff. That's a gift of the Spirit. So you're all the things you're given. So we have talents and we have gifts.
Mm-hmm.
God-given talents, and God-given gifts. People, well, you got to think of it like this. When you get to heaven and you set up and there's a board up there and it's got these boxes that says, this is what Julio Torres, what I built you for. This was your designed purpose, because that is our purpose. This is your design purpose. Your design purpose may be to come out here and to connect with people on these podcasts and to get people to share their stories like this, and for people to go, hey, you know what? I heard something on this podcast and that really struck a nerve with me, man. And I'm going to get in my submarine and go down here and figure myself out. And, but it's really tough. Like when you start talking about Christendom and things like that, people go, man, I don't even know where to start. I get it. I understand. Like, what do you do? Just read your Bible more. Read your Bible more. Bro, that's not the correct answer to say. That's not the same. That's really hard. I mean, yes, you should read your Bible, but where do you start? If you were going to be a new Christian, where would you start? Where do you just start reading your Bible? Where do I go to Matthew? Where do I go to Genesis? Well, you know what I mean? That's a lot of stuff to try to digest. And then there's a lot of craziness that goes out there. That's why you got to have a circle of friends that can
guide you.
Right. That's why you want to have other men, so you can be a godly man. You can still be a godly man and hunt and fish and do fun stuff. But if you're a godly man, a God-fearing man, that's going to save this country. That is the only thing that's going to save this country. Not Trump, not any president. They're not. We cannot put our stock in a mechanical process. Mechanical processes fail you. So what happens when you put your stock in a president that doesn't get elected? Now what happens? Overruled. No, man, you have to start. You have to be a God-fearing man that teaches his kids the right thing to do, to work hard, to have a good work ethic, to treat their wives or their mothers with respect and dignity, to show respect and dignity when they walk into, so when they represent the Torres name. See, when you're dead and gone, you're still going to be judged on your works as a Christian here. So if you were to tell your children to, the biblical obedience of treat your wife with respect, not this, because people go into Ephesians 5 and say, well, it says you're supposed to submit to me, woman. Mm-hmm. Well, it says, Jesus says that he loved he says you're supposed to love your wife like he loved the church. That was his foundation. Jesus is the cornerstone of the church. What do you mean? That's a big deal. So to love your wife like Jesus loves the church, it means you better be pretty nice to her, not some subservient,
to you and
slave at the house.
Right.
Like, hey, bro, you probably ought to actually work harder
to take care
of your wife. Some people say, well, man, I don't make this money to leave to my kids. Really? I mean, I'm not saying you should. Mm-hmm. But why would you say you wouldn't? Why wouldn't you want to leave your family with a legacy? Why wouldn't you want to leave them with good values, and say, hey, look, I worked hard. What I don't take, because you can't take it with you.
Right.
Why would you not want, I would love to leave my kids with tons of stuff, because I'm going to live a responsible life now and live inside my means, right? Live inside my means. I'm blessed, right? But that's the only thing that's going to save this country. It's not going to be politicians. It's not. If we don't go back to the fundamentals of America, schools, if you don't like the public school system, take your kids out.
Right.
Do homeschool. If I can't afford to do that, hey man, figure it out. There's ways around. We can figure stuff out. You can work from home, or you can maybe not. Maybe you go and you go stop at 7-Eleven. And every time you stop at 7-Eleven to get gas, you got to go in there and grab something. Maybe you don't need to do that. Mm-hmm. Maybe you don't need to always go into 7-Eleven and grab something. Because if you do the math on that, on that Monster energy drink or that bag of chips or whatever it is,
Extrapolate that through a year.
through 15 years.
It's a lot.
It's a lot of money, man. It's a lot of money. So there's ways we can come back to center ground. But the first way is the country was founded on Judeo-Christian values. Yep. I mean, the state capitals, the United States Capitol has Bible verses written, etched in the walls. Everywhere. Do you think that we're not a God-fearing country? We're not anymore. We're not a God-fearing country anymore. We're an individual, my own individual autonomous self. And it's all about me, and it's not about our neighbors. It's not about our brothers. And sometimes it's not even about our own families. Sometimes we don't even want to be there in some of the most important events of our families' lives. Make your circle, and if your circle grows, good. But make your circle. Set your boundaries. Keep everything inside that circle. Be patient.
Yep.
Your children are watching you. They watch their fathers.
They do.
They watch them close, because if they see you talking nasty around the house and lazy, they live with you. They know who you really are. Get up. I'm not saying you shouldn't have a restful day, but if you have too many, then you're a sloth, right? Nobody wants a sloth. Be the ant. Be the ant that always works, right? That's Proverbs 6, right? Don't be slothful, be the ant. I write a little book. I write a little story. I got a granddaughter on the way. So I write these stories, because I used to tell my kids stories when they were little.
Right.
So I got this story I'm writing. I've already written 2. It's called The Ant and the Beetle. So there's this particular beetle, and this beetle can manipulate termites. He can produce this saliva or something, and the termites will think that the beetle is a termite, and they'll carry the beetle to their termite nest, and they'll feed the beetle for the rest of his life. So beetle is worthless, man. That's a lazy, slothful beetle. But the ant, on the other hand, have you ever seen ants? They work together. They're organized. They're constantly working together. You have to literally be like the ant. So I talk about in my little stories to my granddaughter that's coming in August. I'm more along the lines of telling my grandbaby to be the ant. Always preparing for the future. Play the long game, not the instant gratification game. Prepare for the storm. Prepare for the famine, the 7-year famine. If you have a 7-year famine, are you prepared for that? Do you have money stuck back? Are you able to retire at a decent age in life where you can go and do another complete life out in front of that?
And circle back, prepare the soil.
And the soil, see, you can take barren land and you can
make it fertile.
Yeah, you can make it produce good fruits.
You can, yeah.
But you got to be like the garden too, right? You have to take care of yourself. You have to cultivate yourself. You have to nurture yourself. You have to be able to make sure you're producing good fruits. I think every man should have a garden. I don't care if it's 2 foot by 2 foot garden. Plant something, grow it. It teaches you patience. It teaches you to take care of things. And then you can share that with other people, right? Because one tomato plant will produce a lot of tomatoes. Especially if it's a cherry tomato plant. Them things go crazy.
Oh, yeah. My kids love cherry tomatoes. They love the tomatoes. They just like...
Yeah.
And that bring it back, like, self-sufficient. You have to be self-sufficient, and you got to take care of yourself. Like, you basically describe it perfectly. Once a man take care of himself, spiritually and emotionally and physically, you can do anything else. You can protect the family. You can provide for the family, and I feel the same way when you talked about. It's good to have a rest day, but when you have too many, you become a sloth. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You become just a couch potato, just laying there, and I cannot. Me and we wired. I think the same way of like we had to produce, we had to build, and we had to protect, and we had to provide. I think that's how I was wired. Like since I was a kid.
Well, every man is wired. Really, every man is
Right.
wired from the Paleolithic era. Every man is wired to want to be physical.
Right.
They want to. So go outside and fix the fence, man. Like, I don't care. Something really small in the house needs to be taken care of, but I don't know how to do that. Bro,
Figure
there's
out.
so much opportunity to learn.
Nowadays, it's way more
Yeah,
opportunities.
it is. It is. Take on a little project. Nothing crazy, but take on little projects.
Mm-hmm.
And I promise you, man, there's nothing more attractive to your wife than for you to be able to handle
care.
up some business. You got a
Right.
toilet that needs to be worked on that you actually fix it versus calling some dude while you sit on the couch.
Right.
I don't care how much money you have.
You got it. I mean, me, I like to do stuff in the house.
Well, I like to know I can handle my own business, you know?
Right. I know my limits, but most of the stuff in the house, I can fix it.
Sometimes I don't know my limits, man. That's why I've had a lot of surgeries. But, you know, I get a little crazy, man. I think I'm going to do something crazy. But at least I learned when to tap out, you know?
Right. Yeah. I told my wife, I know my limits. If I cannot handle anything, I'm just like, baby, I know. We gotta find a specialist, a trade man to do this kind of job.
After you're dripping blood off
Right. After you figure out, you start looking at YouTube tutorials, and
Yeah.
now like, I ain't supposed to be doing that right now, and you
It says, whatever you do, don't do this.
don't do this, and like,
Oh, man.
ooh, I already did that.
Hey,
and,
man, I had surgery one time on my shoulder, and I was watching this YouTube video. This is a true embarrassing story. So I was watching this video. It was like, hey, man, good gut health. Great for you. Drink apple cider vinegar. I didn't even finish the video, man. I was like, man, you know, I'm like excited,
No.
dude. This was years ago. I got to give me some apple cider vinegar. You know, in the fire service, man, you know, if a little does good, then a lot will do better. So I went in there and poured a cup of apple cider vinegar. I'm just going to suck it up and drink it, man.
overdoing it.
Man, I drank like an entire cup of apple cider vinegar. Man, it was probably like, I don't know, 90 seconds later, I was puking in the bathroom, man. I was like, what did I finish the video? And it was like, whatever you do, don't do more than 2 tablespoons. I was like, 2 tablespoons, bro? I did like a full cup. I drank a full cup. Yeah, anyway, that's the shows people how smart I am. So,
Yeah, I mean, it is the same way, man. I'm just bringing back like teaching your kids to to do something and teaching others to do something at least a little bit. I teach my kids the same way, especially my stepson. I'd be like, hey, what do you do productive for today? Do you watch a video? They'll teach you something new. I mean, he likes to watch videos and play video games. Sometimes I'm telling him, like, you know what? If you take 30 minutes, for example, and grab your phone, which you always do, look something new that you have never done.
yeah. Even if it's a little art project.
Yeah, just like look at it and be like, you know what? I know how to fix an outlet. I have an idea. I already see how it's done.
Yeah.
And I already know kind of how to do it. And I tell them like, this is how I train myself.
Yes.
If I don't know how to do something, all right, let me look it up. And I've been watching videos for 2, 3, or 4 days. And I know it's broken. Preparing. And I'll be like, okay, what do I need? Okay, I got those equipment. All right, I think I got it. And I go buy whatever need to be fixed.
Right. And do it right.
And do it and be like, hey, it works. And I didn't burn the house. Good.
Yeah.
Done deal. Next task. And I tell them like, do that. Look something. Learn something new. And
Yeah,
then
because
put
you
it to
don't
practice.
get that time back.
I
If
told
you know
them
what I
that.
mean? Like, you know, what's really hard for people is to read books. Like, I
yeah.
have friends here, I don't like reading. Like, dude, I don't like reading either.
Mm-hmm.
But I force myself to. Well, first of all, school I have to read. But if you just read, man, just read for 15 minutes. Just force yourself to
that
read.
1%.
Yeah, just read for 15 minutes and go, I'm just going to make myself, and I promise you'll pick something up.
Right.
You'll be like, ooh, man, I learned something. Like, we're allergic to learning stuff, right? You know what I mean? Like, I mean, I'd take classes in my entire fire service career, and it was always a beating. You'd always hear firemen complaining, we got to go to CE. Oh, we got to go to class today. We got to be the tip of the spear, man. We got to take care of people. We got to know what's our equipment. We got to train. You got to train. No matter what you do in life, you still got to train. You still got to be staying up on, the smoke detector's got a battery's got to be replaced twice a year, right? When time changes, change your smoke detector battery. Well, when you take that smoke detector battery, when you take the smoke detector down, Vacuum it out, get the dust out of it too, right? Well,
Clean
while
it
you got
up.
the vacuum cleaner out, do it and dust out your vents in your air conditioner and check that filter and oh, it's almost summertime. Maybe we should clean the coils of our AC off. Maybe so see, there's a lot of stuff we can
Right.
do. Maintenance, your house is going to break. It's mechanical. It's going to break. Things are going to break. So we got to constantly be moving stuff. So if we're not moving stuff all the time, then all of a sudden now we got a dishwasher that's not working, a hot water heater's not working, and our AC's not working. But you knew that the coils need to be cleaned twice a year. Smoke detector batteries got to be changed.
It's all preventive maintenance.
The hot water heater was acting weird anyway.
Might as well just fix it. Look.
Yeah,
it up
right.
and-
Maybe it's time to get a new one. Maybe that instead of waiting for it to actually break, when it's 15 years old and it's kicking out rust, when you're pouring rusty water out of there,
Right.
it's like, and sediment, that maybe this is time to get a new one. I'm just saying that we know these warning signs. These yellow lights are going
lights.
off.
Absolutely.
The caution lights are going off, and we're like, I'll get to it. Have a sense of urgency. Have a sense of urgency and act earlier versus later, because the earlier you act, if you're constantly working and doing and trying to keep these things moving, because that's life. That truly is, Julio, that is truly the long game. Are you sticking money aside for retirement? There was a little boy at the airport in Florida when I was coming back. He was Indian. They were from India. And his little sister was 4, and she was talking my ear off, and she was eating some Pringles, and she was like, "You want one?" And if a kid offers you food, you take it, right?
Right.
If you don't, you're
Yeah, it is a must. You gotta.
you have to, even if it's got some stuff on it,
Right.
You just have to suck it up,
Yeah,
man,
I
and
know.
eat it, right? So I took it and I ate it, and that was even, now we're really best friends, right? But her little brother was talking to me. And her dad was, they seemed pretty squared away family, like they were a real good family unit. Mm-hmm. And I told the little boy that was 8, I guess he was 8, something like 8. I said, when you're home, he's like, "What do you like to do?" He's like, "I watch videos and stuff on my phone." I said, "Well, look, man, you don't get that time back. And if you were 8 years old, if you think about it," so I ran this formula. I said, by the time you're 16, you would be equivalent to knowing what a 32-year-old knows if you just focused on it right now. Just a little bit. We're talking 15 minutes a day, right? Just spend 15 minutes a day learning something. He was talking about taking these seashells and doing some sort of an art project with it. And then he was going to sell it. So I said, "Hey, look, you're an entrepreneur. You're 8 years old. You're already going to be like Elon Musk, And
Yeah.
so I said, learn something really cool and then do it. And if it doesn't work out so great, who cares?
You
right?
tried.
You tried. But the thing is, if you don't start now, if you don't act now, then now turns into was, and that you can't go back.
No, you can't.
You can't go back. You can't go back. That time's gone. So you have to learn. So I just tell people every day, really, really what we need to do is every day is try. Just try. I don't care how long it is. Try to do something productive for maintenance of your house, for the maintenance of your mind. Try to become better at something. Try to become interested. It's never too late to go to school, to go to technical school, to learn to weld. It's never too late for any of those things. And don't be afraid to do it. Don't let that wall of fear stop you from that world of peace, right? Because there's a lot of peace and fulfillment, right? When you can build with your own hands or do so.
It gives you that sense of like self-sufficient.
Yeah.
Give you that sense like, you know what, I can do a lot of stuff.
You
don't feel useless.
Well, a lot of people underestimate themselves too.
Yeah, that's true.
They underestimate themselves in such a way that they don't want to do a podcast because they're like, well, I don't have anything interesting to say until they start telling their story. And you go, man, you were really, you survived the Holocaust, whatever. That's an interesting story.
It is.
A lot of people have more interesting stories
And they think they have.
than they think they do. And a lot of it's helpful to people.
Yep, that's like, what? That was one of my, I would say, my thoughts when I started doing the podcast, because I was like, you know what? I don't think I can do it. To be honest, I was like, I don't think I can do it because, first of all, I didn't know how to work a camera. I had no idea. I had no idea how to work the audio. I had no idea how to set up lights. And I was like, all this stuff coming to my head, like, and I was getting in that swirl of like I was drowning in a cup of water before even we started
Yeah.
the podcast. I was like drowning already, and my wife, she's like, "Are you thinking about doing the podcast? Yes or no?" And I was like, "I don't know, baby. So many stuff that I gotta do." And she's like, "Why you don't focus on what do you want to do? Don't worry about the technical stuff. Worry about what is your message. What is the purpose you want to do your podcast?" And I was like, you know what? She took like 2 tons of weight on my shoulders
Right.
because she's like, focus on something. What is your purpose? The technical stuff is already there. Only you have to find how to employ it. But you just focus. What do you want to do? Once you find the purpose, everything else they just fall in place.
It is, and passion and stuff like that will help fill those other gaps.
Right,
Right.
yeah,
You just needed your wife to get your pride out of your way.
Right?
You know, but really that's another thing is people sometimes are like, well, I've been, I was a battalion chief for 11 years, a fireman for 30 years. I don't listen to your whatever. You don't know anything about life. And you never know what somebody else's little story might, and somebody, and we can't disqualify what somebody else's qualifications are because they don't match up to what we did. They're different. But like trauma is trauma, right? At the end of the day,
Right.
knowledge is gained from a lot of different things. The reason the man that's old is so wise is because he's been hit a lot with the T-post. He's been hit more than once with the T-post. He's had hooks in his hands. That's why he tells you don't do this. It's not because the guy's a jerk. It's because but a lot of times we fail to tell the full story to really grasp why it is. It's like, well, if I tell you not to do something, you shouldn't do it. No. But if you explain the experience a little bit better, then people go, whoa. And that's why I think there's a lot more interesting people out there, and we're just missing hearing what they say because they could really benefit a lot of people. Because your podcast can reach, 150 people, 1,000 people, or 1 million, or 150 million. You just never know how the algorithm's going to treat you, right? Because I know I used to do a lot of videos, and the hashtag Texas Hogbait hashtag had at the time it was 160 million views. You think about that. That's a lot of people that have seen that video. I mean, 160 million views to see your brand.
That's crazy.
That's crazy because you never know.
Right.
You never know what and maybe it's going to be a flop. Maybe it's not going to be that great. And like you were saying earlier, it's like I'm trying to figure out that sweet spot. The sweet spot really is authenticity, is just being true to who you really are. Not trying to be like, Joe Rogan. I don't listen to Joe Rogan. Some of his podcasts are good, but he tries to interview the upper echelon of people, and they talk about spaceships and aliens and stuff like that. Like, I'm no interest in that because that doesn't affect my life. Different strains of marijuana or whatever doesn't affect my life. Like, that's not beneficial to me.
Right.
But what about a dude that, can talk about quality sleep? I know that doesn't sound interesting, but who wouldn't in the world be interested in knowing how to get a good night's sleep without taking Ambien or whatever? You know what I mean?
Like, yeah, definitely. I told my wife, like, baby, I think I should call my podcast the People's Podcast.
Yeah, there you go.
Just like, why you want to call that? It's like, it's for everybody. Like, anyone can sit over here and talk to me about their life and tell me their experiences. Because I'm just curious to listen to anyone. Like, I don't care if you work in a gastronomic industry and you were a chef for about 20 years in X hotel, or you got your food truck and you eating, you cooking for living, or you a teacher or police officer or whatever, or construction or journeyman. I don't care. If you have a story, just like, I would like to hear it, because that's the real America to me.
The real America too is the struggles to get to the point they're at there, right? So
the journey.
You were saying in there earlier that setting up a podcast, it requires a lot of stuff. If people could see all the gear in the setup time, right? There's a lot of gear that goes into setting things up. Anything you do in life, that's going to be anything. Doesn't matter. It's only going to be a lot of work. I mean, I'm never going to tell anybody doing anything it's going to be easy. It's not going to be easy, but it's going to definitely be worth it. And it's going to give you fulfillment, but you're just going to have to get over that. That's why it's really important for people to really slow down mentally and say, hey, I'm going to watch that fruit grow. I'm going to watch that crop grow before I can harvest it. So you can go a garden, or you can go to the produce section and pick up what you want.
True.
Right?
Right.
It's just a matter of perspective of what you want out of life. I prefer to grow a garden and walk out to my garden and pick fresh vegetables because there's something really cool about that. There's something really cool about cultivating the soil and getting rid of the weeds.
And taking care of.
Pruning, when it needs to be pruned. And if it doesn't produce good fruit, then cut it down, right? Get rid of it. It's not doing anything. It's taking up space.
Move it 2 feet to the left or right. Just enjoying the process. I believe
the whole process. But people need to learn that not having something done right now is okay. It's okay. That going from the start of the podcast of setting up this, getting all the gear bought and spending all those thousands of dollars to get that, to uploading a video to YouTube and stuff, that's part of the process, man. That you should really technically enjoy all of it.
Right.
Like the editing part is, I got to cut, splice videos, do things like that. That process, it's tedious, right? But the end result is
way better.
And that's better because the algorithm works better now.
Right. I mean, I enjoy traveling. I really do. My wife told me, like, you like driving and meeting new people.
It's cool that what you're doing.
It is good. And I would like to do that at least once a month. Do the travel, take 3 or 4 days and kind of like break the routine at my house. Just kind of break the routine. Just
there you go.
3 days. Boom, go by myself.
And you learn a ton too from speaking to different people.
Right.
And seeing how they live.
Oh yeah, it is interesting, to be honest. It's just like
you're coming into people's houses, like here. I don't know where other places you go, but
right. I go to people's houses, yeah.
Yeah,
offices.
You go set up shop in their house, man.
Right. I did it like today with Paul. We went to his office, and he's like, "Where you want to record this?" It's like, "I want to record it right here on your office, with the bookshelf in the back. It would be a great interview." And he's like, "Okay, let's do it here," and we have a great conversation and I really appreciate because it helped me to reconnect with people, to build bridges, to learn from people's experiences and kind of like I feel like it kind of enhance my life in some way.
Of course, yeah.
Because I feed off of you for your experiences. I feed off of all experiences. When I go tomorrow to another interview, it kind of like, man, it's just like an overwhelming emotions. But at the same time, it's just like, man, I'm just sucking everything in. And it feels good.
Yeah. And you don't know what all it took for Paul to get to where he was, but you have a pretty good idea now.
I do. I definitely do.
You have a pretty good idea now that it was a pretty big deal to go from. And Paul didn't have any idea what it was going to take to become what he became today. Yeah. He had no idea he didn't know that he was going to. Because if you could see that in the future, some of the pitfalls and potholes, you'd be like, man, screw that, I'm out.
Right.
It's better to be a little bit blinded by the ignorance of it and just go for it.
Yeah.
Because you're going to have to go through murky, deep water sometimes, and that's okay.
Oh, yeah.
The end product is way better because you didn't get it instantly.
Absolutely. Well, Jack, thank you.
Yes, sir.
And I really appreciate, man, I think we got to do a part 2 someday.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Because I would like to go more in depth on your religious belief.
Yeah.
And once you graduate in December.
Yeah, let's do that.
I would
when
love
I start
to
my master's, we'll get you cranking back out here again.
Oh yeah, I would like to dive in more in that and in your formation and how that helped you a lot going back to school and all that stuff. 'Cause it would be you kind of interesting person to you did so many stuff in your life and it's just like, man, I could just think about the next episode. It would be great. It just like, because I know we touched on stuff throughout.
Things change, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so I was like, man, just every time I watch interviews, I'm like, man, I could have dive in a little bit more here and there.
Yeah.
But I would do a part two with you and Paul because it's more into it than people think it is. It just
Yeah. Yep.
it's a lot of more stuff.
There is a
But
lot.
yeah, but for those who watching right now, I really thank you to stick around to the end. Please leave a comment down below and let me know what do you like about the video, and I really appreciate it. Thank you for your time. It's very very valuable that you basically gave me your more more of your time and kind of expensive currency, which is time.
Yep.
You know, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Do you have any last words for our audience?
Nothing other than watch the lights, watch the yellow, watch the red, and act as quick as possible, and try to be try to pre-plan ahead.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, Jack. And
Yes, sir.
it's an honor to have you here.
Same. I feel honored for you to be here, brother.
All right, thank you. All right, for those out there, take care and God bless you. Bye bye.